Hyun-wook is currently stuck in military service. Just like hundreds of others, he has to perform mindless drills under the commander's orders. But while the others struggle just to endure, our hero secretly takes bullets from their pockets and eats them. When lunchtime comes, Hyun-wook doesn't go to the canteen with everyone else. Instead, he steals all the spoons and eats them too. You're probably wondering, what's wrong with this guy? The thing is, the more metal he eats, the stronger he becomes, and the more metal he can control with his mind, just like Magneto. Before his regression, he was known to everyone as the Emperor of Steel, and no army of monsters could stop him. But because of the betrayal of high-ranking Awakeners who sided with evil, our hero was killed. Now he's going to eat every bit of metal he can find to become an absolutely invincible Emperor of Steel. 3 days have passed, and Hyun-wook has eaten enough metal to control 1.3 kilograms of it. He happens to be on night duty, the same night a monster portal is set to open. So he tells his friend Jeonmo to stay on post while he grabs his rifle and heads to the portal's location. At that exact moment, the gate opens, and dozens of bloodthirsty goblins pour out. Meanwhile, everyone else is still sleeping soundly in their dorms. One of the goblins stares toward the dorm, while another lets out a screech, signaling the hunt to begin. But before they can move, one is suddenly thrown back by the force of Hyun-wook's weapon, because he's already standing in front of them. The other goblins freeze, staring at their fallen comrade. Hyun-wook, however, is thrilled beyond words. He's been waiting for this moment for 3 days. But his inner thoughts are interrupted by the sound of a goblin trying to get back on its feet. Manipulating his weapon, Hyun-wook muses that he's always been good with ambushes. Maybe this time it'll be enough to make him level 1. Though he's not thrilled about having to repeat everything all over again, he accepts that this is the life he's been given. As a goblin charges at him, Hyun-wook is more than ready. With a swift flick of his finger, he controls his dagger, slicing clean through the goblin's neck. The hunt has begun. Other goblins prepare to attack him, but Hyun-wook's attention is fixed on the mana core lying on the ground. Knowing the future, he wastes no time. He pulls the core toward himself and swallows it. The goblins freeze, completely baffled by what they've just witnessed. Hyun-wook looks at them with annoyance, mocking them for how badly their mana stinks. In truth, he can consume steel, and since mana cores are made from mana steel, he needs them to grow stronger. At that moment, his system congratulates him for consuming mana steel. Once the absorption process is complete, his mana will increase. He grins at the screen because it means he really can become stronger, and fast. Consuming all these goblins might just make his life a lot easier. He then pulls his bayonet out from the tree, ready to feast on the goblins. A little while ago, when Hyun-wook is with Jeonmo, they suddenly hear shouting in the distance. Before Jeonmo can react, Hyun-wook quickly hushes him, lying that he senses metal movement nearby. Jeonmo stares at him in disbelief. As far as he knows, Hyun-wook can only detect metal that are nearby. But he trusts his superior's words anyway, assuming maybe Hyun-wook is sensing a type of metal he can't see. He suggests they report it to the base, but Hyun-wook immediately shoots that down, saying no one at the branch base would believe him if he claimed he could sense an unknown F-rank player moving around at night just by detecting their metal weapon. Jeonmo is left thoroughly confused about what they're supposed to do next. Hyun-wook, with a calm and convincing tone, tells him that he'll check it out himself. Meanwhile, he makes Jeonmo promise not to leave his post under any circumstances, and not to report anything either. After fooling his loyal subordinate, Hyun-wook makes his way toward the gate, where he spots a swarm of goblins. He lied to Jeonmo because if the military finds out, even if he hunts the goblins himself, their mana cores will still belong to the army. Without wasting another second, he prepares to attack more goblins, and he succeeds in taking several down. His focus is on targeting their feet, aiming to make them stumble. Meanwhile, the boss monster watches from the branch of a tree, gritting his teeth as he sees his subordinates fall one after another. This is all part of Hyun-wook's plan, and he's quite pleased to hear the goblins screaming in pain. One of them tries to attack him from behind, but Hyun-wook quickly grabs a fallen goblin's blade and starts slashing through his enemies with the efficiency of a chef chopping up chicken. Hyun-wook once died in his past life because of a sneak attack from behind. Since then, he's hated cowardly moves like that. So, without hesitation, he finishes the goblin off. He glares at the rest of them and threatens darkly that if anyone tries to attack him from behind again, he'll eat them alive. They visibly shiver at the threat. Seeing their fear, Hyun-wook knows it's time to begin the final stage of the game, which is finding the boss monster. He stays alert, glancing in every direction to spot the goblin shaman. But when he doesn't see any sign of him, he decides to bait him out. To do this, he loudly announces that he's found a valuable item and intentionally leaves himself open while pretending to collect it. He knows the goblin shaman isn't as dumb as his minions and keeps doing his act while leaving himself open. He's certain the shaman will take this as an opportunity to strike. Impatient, Hyun-wook waits for the shaman to reveal himself. At the same moment, the goblin shaman, having the exact same intention, begins casting his magic. The moment Hyun-wook picks up the stone from the ground, the earth beneath him suddenly erupts. Meanwhile, inside the surveillance room, one of the soldiers quickly rouses the platoon leader, reporting that he heard the ground rumbling. The leader, clearly irritated at being disturbed, threatens to kill him if it turns out to be nothing. Back with Hyunwook and the goblins, the eruption causes several goblins to be injured, while the rest scatter in fear. The goblin shaman, on the other hand, looks cocky, pleased with the results of his magic. But his handiwork ends up doing the opposite because it reveals his location to Hyunwook. The shaman is stunned when Hyunwook suddenly shouts out his position. Without wasting a second, Hyunwook hurls a dagger toward the monster. The goblin shaman swiftly dodges it and then leaps into the air, kicking the weapon back toward Hyunwook. That earns a dramatic protest from Hyunwook, who sarcastically complains that it was a perfect shot. The shaman grins at the remark, clearly enjoying himself. But Hyunwook isn't done yet. He sends his greatsword flying toward the goblin shaman, declaring that the last attack was just a trap. However, he's taken aback when the goblin shaman catches the greatsword in midair, just before it can pierce his neck. In that moment, Hyunwook silently admits to himself that he truly was a failure in his past life, because this same shaman had managed to catch his weapon just as easily. The goblin's hand is injured from catching the sword, which prompts a mock comment from Hyunwook. He scoffs that someone who sends a bunch of goblins shouldn't complain about getting a little scratch. Then he boldly declares that he's going to finish them all off in one go. But in truth, Hyunwook is bluffing as he doesn't have a solid plan yet, and the goblins seem even more enthusiastic now that their boss is holding his own in the fight. To make matters worse, he gets a notification. He's already used 40% of his mana. The system warns him to manage it carefully. Left with no choice, he disengages the safety on his gun, fully prepared to confront the goblin shaman. No matter how much damage he takes, he's determined to kill the shaman and consume its mana stone before returning to the guardhouse. Meanwhile, the goblin shaman grins like a menace. Just then, Hyunwook hears Junmo calling out to him, pulling his attention for a split second. One clever goblin, instead of rushing at Hyunwook, darts toward Junmo, who has no idea what's happening. Seeing this, Hyunwook grits his teeth. The goblin is just about to attack Junmo when Hyunwook shouts at him to get down. As Junmo ducks, Hyunwook flings his greatsword at the goblin. It dodges the blade, but the next second, Hyunwook steps forward, swiftly aims his gun into the goblin's mouth, and pulls the trigger. Another goblin leaps through the air, aiming straight for him. Hyunwook fires again but misses. That's when he realizes that these goblins aren't just savage, they're also smart. At the same moment, a voice crackles through Hyunwook's walkie-talkie, asking about the sound of gunfire and requesting a report from anyone who knows what's happening. Hearing this, Hyunwook quickly responds, reporting their location and confirming that a gate has opened in their area. He identifies the creatures as goblins, likely the remnants of the first wave who had previously left the area. When it comes to reporting casualties, he glances at Junmo, who is visibly shaken but unharmed, and calmly states that there are no casualties. After receiving his report, his superior from Command Center orders all soldiers at the guardhouse to remain on standby and defend their positions. At that moment, Hyunwook immediately realizes something. Lieutenant Seo Yunha will be arriving soon. Seo Yunha, the leader of the AMT Paladins, is already preparing to deal with the gate now that she's aware of it. But Hyunwook has a very different concern. He knows that if she arrives, she'll be able to clear the gate on her own, and every item obtained, including a legendary Grade 1, will legally belong to the military. That item is adamantium, which is the same metal that once made him the Steel Emperor in his past life. If he misses this chance to get his hands on it, he won't have another opportunity to find adamantium for 4 more years. Remembering the final moments of his previous life, he grits his teeth. No matter what happens, he's going to get to it first. For this purpose, Hyunwook understands that the monsters must be dealt with before the AMT Paladins or standby forces arrive. Typically, luring goblins requires a human presence to draw them in. Though Junmo raises a question, Hyunwook doesn't respond. His mind is occupied, analyzing the likely paths goblins might take next in search of prey. The city center crosses his thoughts as a potential destination, but he quickly dismisses it. A place that densely populated wouldn't suit a goblin pack as it's too risky, too exposed for them. Then, a report from the 6th post provides an answer. Goblins have begun appearing there. Hyunwook doesn't hesitate to acknowledge the call, intending to assist, only to be met with resistance. Orders demand every squad remain at their designated post. And from the tone of the reply, it's clear that F-rank soldiers like them aren't expected to accomplish much. The implication carries a mix of disbelief and mockery. Junmo, clearly unsettled, voices concern. The fear of punishment looms. The possibility of confinement to the guardhouse is real. But Hyunwook remains unmoved, knowing the 6th post relies heavily on long-range players, which are mages and archers, who would struggle against close-range enemies like goblins. A protest from Junmo follows, questioning what real impact they could have. Hyunwook, calm as ever, adds that he will also help him with a quiet glance, serving as both an answer and a decision. The sudden realization leaves Junmo stunned, caught off guard. Meanwhile, the 6th post requests backup as their corporal is down. They are told to hold their position. The rapid response unit has already been deployed, but until then, they must defend their post with their lives. Echoing their superior's grim orders, the soldiers resign themselves to the idea that they're going to die anyway. Goblins have already surrounded the entire guardhouse, leaving no escape. Inside, Soldier turns to his corporal, who is barely managing to stay upright. The corporal admits that he doesn't believe the barrier will be enough to stop the goblins. Desperation creeps in as the soldier pleads, asking when help will arrive or if it's only going to come once they're already dead. He doesn't get to finish the sentence. Suddenly, an eerie silence falls outside. That's when the goblins step back, allowing their boss to take charge. With a twisted command, he manipulates the surrounding rocks and hurls them at the guardhouse. The impact is immediate. The roof begins to crumble, dust fills the air, and panic spreads among the soldiers. They know exactly what's coming next. The goblin boss has arrived, and he intends to destroy the guardhouse completely. After that, the survivors will be dragged to the altar, where the goblin minions will gleefully rip out their hearts while they're still alive. Understanding the full horror of their situation, the corporal reaches a breaking point. With his hand trembling over his own weapon, he prepares to end his life himself while believing it to be less painful than what awaits them. His subordinate breaks down in tears at the sight. Outside, the goblin shaman watches silently, ready to end the game. Suddenly, a voice echoes inside the crumbling guardhouse. Hyunwook is here, ready to assist. Calmly, he instructs them to aim at the light. One of them, Park, an archer, is told to prepare and wait for Hyunwook's signal. Hyunwook repeatedly emphasizes that the fire skill must be activated only when he gives the cue. Left with no real choice, Park readies his bowgun, treating Hyunwook's instructions as a desperate last resort. He knows it usually takes a whole unit of archers to handle a goblin wave like this. He has no idea what's about to happen, and in the thick darkness, he can barely see well enough to make an accurate shot. At that moment, Hyunwook calmly responds that aiming is all Park needs to worry about, as he himself will handle the trigger. True to his words, Hyunwook takes control of the shot, baffling Park completely. The fire arrow releases from the bow and strikes a goblin that Hyunwook has already pinned down. The very next moment, the arrow explodes within the goblin's body. With this calculated stunt, Hyunwook uses only 1% of his mana, and the efficiency of it brings a flicker of satisfaction as he's found a way to utilize an archer's destructive potential without draining his own energy. Inside the guardhouse, Park is stunned to see his aim hit the target dead on. Watching this unfold, the goblin shaman retaliates with a wave of rocks, launching them toward Hyunwook. But Hyunwook narrowly dodges the attack at the last moment. Unfazed, he calmly instructs Park once again to reload and aim for the light. One after another, goblins fall, roasted by precise firepower. Each kill witnessed by the goblin shaman, who now watches grimly as his forces are turned into cinders. Meanwhile, Park Junmo is assigned the task of locating the boss monster, and he finds himself wondering how he's supposed to do it. Even if he does manage to find the goblin, it would be a suicidal mission before he can even send a signal. Doubts creep in because Hyunwook's intentions seem off. It almost feels like he's planning to clear the gate entirely on his own, rather than merely distracting the enemy as he had claimed earlier. His thoughts are abruptly interrupted when a goblin lunges at him. But before it can strike, a dagger flies in by Hyunwook's, which pierces the creature, disabling it. However, that wasn't even the main target. A fire arrow, triggered by Hyunwook, strikes the goblin's back the next moment, and it bursts into flames. Hyunwook then signals Junmo to position the rifle, and Junmo complies without hesitation. In that brief moment, he can't help but question whether this is truly the same Lee Hyunwook they've always known. Meanwhile, Hyunwook patiently waits. By now, the goblin shaman should have seen enough as his minions reduced to ashes. That should be enough provocation for him to reveal himself. At that moment, the system sends a warning about the heavy mana consumption. He's down to just 12%. Seeing that number, his frustration flares. His mana reserves are nearly depleted, and his subordinates are still in danger. He grits his teeth, especially enraged at the goblin shaman who continues to hide. Right then, a cry for help echoes through the chaos. It's Junmo's voice. His head is caught in the grip of the goblin shaman. Hyunwook prepares to attack the boss monster, but the creature cleverly uses Junmo as a shield. Frustration tightens in his chest as he grits his teeth, appearing to surrender by throwing down his weapon. But behind the act, his mind is working fast. Surrounding him, the goblins begin to close in. Still, Hyunwook looks at Junmo with a wide grin and loudly proclaims that Junmo is the reason he'll win this fight. At that very moment, he pulls the trigger, firing Junmo's rifle, which had already been positioned toward the goblin shaman under Hyunwook's prior instructions. The unexpected shot stuns the goblin boss, forcing it to release Junmo. Hyunwook immediately shouts Junmo's name, needing to confirm he's unharmed. Once Junmo assures him that he's safe, Hyunwook knows the real fight begins now. He launches his dagger at the goblin shaman, but when the weapon fails to pierce its back, realization hits that it's wearing leather armor there. His mana reserve drops to just 9%. Ignoring the system's warning, he begins to analyze the strange choice of armor. Why only the back? The answer clicks that this goblin isn't here to fight anymore. It's preparing to escape through the gate. For a brief moment, Hyunwook freezes, unsure of what to do. But then he notices the steel necklace hanging around the goblin shaman's neck. Mana is nearly depleted, only 3% remaining. Still, he focuses it all to pull the goblin toward him using the steel necklace. With only 1% of mana left, he hurls his dagger at the goblin shaman as one last, desperate strike. Finally, his mana runs out completely. Hyunwook stands there, breathless and huffing, his body clearly out of shape after being reborn into a form that desperately needs training. Just then, he spots a holy light in the distance, which is a clear signal that Seo Yunha is arriving soon. With growing urgency, he begins searching the goblin boss's corpse, determined to retrieve its mana core before reinforcements arrive. As he pulls the core from the body, voices ring out as soldiers announcing they've found the gate. In the very next moment, he finds himself at gunpoint, surrounded by senior soldiers demanding his identification. Left with no choice, he quickly swallows the core and turns to face them, introducing himself as calmly as he can. Upon seeing him, the soldiers immediately call for a stretcher, assuming he must be injured. Seo Una arrives just in time to witness the scene. She sees the open gate and knows that if it's still active, some goblins must still be lurking. What truly stuns her, however, is the fallen boss monster defeated by ordinary 4 soldiers. She pauses, taking note of the injuries on the goblin bodies. Each wound follows a consistent pattern, too precise and uniform to be from multiple sources. The conclusion is simple. This was the work of one person. Meanwhile, Hyunwook receives a notification that he has successfully consumed the adamantium core. However, his system cautions that absorption will take time since his body is already processing other metal. Still, the news is satisfying. This metal grants him a new magic skill akin to enchantment, and over time, he'll be able to manipulate even heavier materials. As Yuna scans the scene, she notices Hyunwook laughing to himself, which is an odd reaction given the chaos. His amusement only grows when his screen notifies him of yet another ability, the capacity to detect all metal within his sensory range. At the same time, Yunha is informed that 2 goblins are still roaming near the 6th post. But Hyunwook pays little attention to the commotion. For him, this is a moment of quiet triumph. Surrounded by metal signatures he can now feel with absolute clarity, he knows one thing for certain, that the Great Steel Emperor has truly returned. A few days pass since the Goblin Gate incident, and rumors begin to swirl across the base. Whispers of an F-rank player defeating goblins single-handedly echo through the halls like wildfire. At the 3rd Brigade, 1st Battalion Station, 2 female soldiers chat about the event with a mixture of fascination and skepticism. One, clearly swept up in the drama, excitedly recounts her version of the story that how ordinary soldiers, cornered and awaiting death, are miraculously saved by an F-rank player who slices through goblins with ease. Her companion, however, remains doubtful. The whole tale sounds like a campfire fantasy. Meanwhile, word of the incident reaches soldiers like Oh Sanguk, who scoffs at the rumor, clearly unimpressed. He has no patience for what he considers fairy tales. Nearby, his subordinate Park, the archer who witnessed it all, insists the story is true. He even offers to vouch for it personally. Just then, Wansuk enters the scene, putting on an air of casual friendliness. But before Park can say much, Wansuk cuts in, subtly flexing authority by reminding Park that he once dared to lower his hand before Sanguk had accepted his salute. Park, shivering slightly under the pressure, denies the accusation and quickly salutes Sanguk again, trying not to make things worse. Now Sanguk turns his attention to Wansuk, believed to be the next ace of their term, a soldier known for his raw strength, someone capable of tearing down goblins with his bare hands. With a mocking edge, Sanguk asks whether Wansuk could have taken down a raid gate alongside 3 ordinary soldiers. Wansuk answers with a firm and simple no. Oh Sanguk stubbornly assumes that someone else must have struck the final blow after a goblin got separated from the herd. To him, the idea of an F-rank going rogue like that is dangerous because it threatens the very foundation of military discipline. Wansuk's expression darkens into something cruel as he grabs Park's head, unable to tolerate even the possibility that this rumor might disrupt military order. Meanwhile, inside the battalion commander's office, Hyunwook is summoned. He stands before Seo Yunha and her companion, salutes the commander, and waits, still unclear about why he's been called. After all, he knows the military has the power to quietly bury such matters. The battalion commander then directly addresses Hyunwook, demanding an explanation. According to the report, Hyunwook disobeyed a direct order to remain on standby and forcefully repelled the first wave of monsters without authorization. Hyunwook immediately realizes he's in trouble. One wrong word could land him in a full-blown military trial. He carefully considers his response, understanding the weight of every syllable. Eventually, he admits that it's true as he responded immediately to the gate's outbreak. The commander already knows the report, mutters aloud that it's hard to believe. By all logic, an F-rank like him should have ended up as dinner for the goblins, not their executioner. Hyunwook can feel the pressure radiating from the battalion commander, but he also knows this is no time to falter as there is no room to screw this up. So, with practiced subtlety, Hyunwook shifts the blame delicately, implying that he felt wronged by the battalion commander himself. This unexpected move draws an immediate protest from Minhee, but the commander raises a hand to silence him and signals Hyunwook to continue. Seizing the moment, Hyunwook straightens and, with respectful enthusiasm in his tone, reminds the commander of a lesson once taught during training. His words echo the battalion commander's own memorable speech, one that emphasized how even the lowest-ranking soldier could succeed if they followed the AMT tactical textbook on facing high-level monsters like trolls. The battalion commander pauses, caught off guard by the memory of his own words. Hyunwook reiterates the line, emphasizing that if they are trained to face trolls, then defeating a goblin should be far from impossible for someone like him. He acknowledges that yes, he acted against the command center's orders, but he did so to save the lives of the soldiers stationed at the 6th post. Internally, he feels a flicker of satisfaction. He's given a logical, well-structured answer, but he knows logic alone won't carry him through. Now is the time to press the emotional button that will truly move the commander. He recalls how the battalion commander once preached that a true soldier isn't defined by rank, but by the will to prepare for the worst and give everything in the fight. Continuing with measured conviction, Hyunwook says he merely did what a true soldier should under the commander's guidance. He speaks with genuine reverence, stressing that everything he did while putting his life on the line, defying orders, applying tactics, came from the training he received under that very leadership. Then he adds the final twist of the knife, calmly, respectfully, but sharply. He says he endured the bullying, the ridicule of being an F rank, because he held on to the mindset drilled into them. But now, seeing the battalion commander, the very man who instilled that belief, deny his actions and question his place, it feels as if his entire existence in the military is being denied. From his past life, Hyunwook knows this man's history. When the gates first opened and chaos began, the commander, then second lieutenant, nearly died fighting orcs. But instead of retiring, he returned stronger, eventually helping to build the AMT from the ground up. Hyunwook knows he's struck a nerve by invoking the commander's own words and legacy. He bets everything on it, and the gamble pays off. The battalion commander's stern expression falters. He steps forward, clasps Hyunwook's shoulder firmly, and in front of everyone, declares that from this moment on, Hyunwook is officially promoted to a non-commissioned officer. To top it all off, just as the moment hits its peak, Hyunwook's system notifies him. The absorption process is complete, and a new skill has awakened Steel Physique. With this ability, he can now reinforce any part of his body, turning flesh into a metal. Even more promising, the system reveals that he can further enhance this skill by consuming high-hardness magical metals, potentially boosting it to D rank and beyond. While the others around him remain stunned at the battalion commander's announcement, Hyunwook himself stands frozen, unsure whether he's heard correctly. Sometime later, Hyunwook is back in the training room of the 3rd Brigade, 1st Battalion Station. His expression is far from proud. In fact, he looks downright frustrated. Being appointed a non-commissioned officer wasn't part of the plan because he had no intention of sticking around in the military longer than necessary. All he wanted was to avoid the guardhouse, not climb the chain of command. From the shadows of the room, Oh Sang-guk and Won-suk watch him with quiet malice, their eyes sharp with resentment. Hyunwook recalls how Min-hee had immediately protested his promotion. Military history had never seen an F rank reach the status of non-commissioned officer. It was unprecedented, and some weren't ready to accept it. Seizing the moment, he had politely requested time to think about it, pretending to be modest and uncertain. In truth, his mind was already made up. From now on, Hyunwook resolves to keep a low profile. No more attracting attention. No more heroics in the spotlight. His thoughts are interrupted by Won-suk, who casually asks if his bench is empty. Hyunwook replies with a firm no. Sensing the provocation, he questions Won-suk's purpose for being there. But instead of answering directly, Won-suk easily lifts the weights and comments with a mocking grin, how it's surprising that someone as famous as Hyunwook is lifting such a pitiful amount, something that would clearly embarrass their entire unit. With that, all eyes shift to them. Hyunwook glances at Oh Sang-guk and knows instantly that if he lets this slide, Oh Sang-guk will only escalate things, just like in his past life. Besides, he's already decided to keep a low profile but not at the cost of becoming an easy target. Left with no choice, he turns to Won-suk, fire burning in his eyes, and challenges him to a spar. Not long after, word spreads like wildfire that Won-suk, the next term ace, is about to face off against Hyunwook. Soldiers gather around the ring, excitement buzzing in the air. Both step up, boxing gloves on, ready for a showdown. Won-suk's grin says it all that he's more than eager to teach Hyunwook the lesson of a lifetime. The match kicks off instantly as Won-suk lunges toward Hyunwook with raw aggression. At the same moment, outside the fighting arena, Warrant Officer Cheon is visibly annoyed after hearing that Sergeant Choi Young-jun has gone on vacation. He came all this way just to meet him, especially after hearing rumors that Choi holds the potential to become a sword saint. Seeing his superior's frustration, Cheon's subordinate tries to salvage the situation, reminding him that the visit need not be a waste. After all, the next term ace with the barbarian trait Won-suk is present and fighting today. The suggestion catches Cheon's attention, making him pause to consider it. His subordinate doubles down, emphasizing that evaluating Won-suk could be worthwhile. Better to leave with something than go home empty-handed. Meanwhile, back in the ring, Hyunwook swiftly avoids Won-suk's furious punches. He remains defensive, weaving and ducking with sharp reflexes. But then, one heavy blow lands squarely, sending him crashing into the wall behind him. Won-suk seizes the opportunity, rushing in to deliver another strike, but Hyunwook rolls across the floor in a clean dodge, rising swiftly to his feet. He plants himself firmly and gestures for Won-suk to come at him again, eyes fierce and unwavering. Provoked and gritting his teeth, Won-suk charges in, unable to resist the bait. Meanwhile, Warrant Officer Cheon strolls into the training hall with his subordinate, who is saying that it looks like destiny itself has set the perfect stage for an impromptu audition. He nudges Cheon, asking for his opinion on the fight. Cheon casually admits that Won-suk packs a precise punch, but points out that all the power in the world doesn't matter if you can't even land a single hit. His subordinate insists it's just inexperience. Won-suk just needs to hit once, and it'll be game over. Cheon listens, silently weighing the claim. Back near the ring, Oh Sang-guk watches in growing confusion. Won-suk hasn't landed a single blow, and he assumes the guy's just going easy on Hyunwook. He shouts at him to stop playing around and go all out. Others join in too, mainly because, let's be real, most of them placed bets on Won-suk. What none of them realize is that Won-suk isn't going easy. In fact, he's trying hard, but something feels off. His body's heavier than usual, his legs sluggish. What he doesn't know is that Hyunwook is subtly controlling the metal inside his boots. With every step, it's like Won-suk is sinking into invisible quicksand. Still, he pushes through, throwing another punch only for Hyunwook to effortlessly slip past it again. Now Won-suk's face clearly shows it that he's confused, frustrated, and low-key panicking. On the other side, Hyunwook smirks. He can tell Won-suk feels like he's fighting in a swamp, and he's absolutely loving it. Suddenly, Won-suk pauses and blurts out that something's wrong with his legs. But Hyunwook just smirks wider and throws back a mocking taunt. Maybe Won-suk's just making excuses now that things aren't going his way? With a growl, Won-suk activates his berserker mode, layering it with his body-strengthening skill. His aura flares. Hyunwook is ready for this. Meanwhile, Cheon is taken aback as Won-suk activates his body-strengthening skill, something that clearly doesn't belong in a casual spar. But what really stuns him is Hyunwook's expression, which is completely unfazed. His experienced eyes narrow, analyzing the scene. This isn't just a rookie sparring match. It's starting to look like a showdown between a raging buffalo and a waiting leopard, one hiding its claws. Cheon comments that this is fun. His subordinate, practically glowing, takes Cheon's amusement as validation. He points out how Won-suk is proving his worth after all, body strengthening at D rank. That's impressive enough to justify the hype. Back in the ring, Won-suk's patience hits its limit. Enough humiliation. He charges in and lands a heavy punch, sending Hyunwook crashing into the net of the ring. Oh Sang-guk jumps up, cheering like he's watching the underdog win the national championship. But Won-suk isn't celebrating. His fist throbs painfully, and he realizes something's very wrong. It feels like he just punched a steel wall with his bare hands. Because he basically did. Hyunwook had activated his strengthening body transformation at the last moment as his arms now hardened like steel. And Won-suk, true to form, charges like a bull. But Hyunwook dances out of range again, effortlessly dodging. Then, with his feet steeled, he lands a brutal kick to Won-suk's shin. Truth be told, Hyunwook hates wasting his valuable skills on someone like this. But if beating down this trash soldier helps shut down the bullying, then maybe it's worth it. Everyone is stunned into silence as Hyunwook effortlessly beats Won-suk to the ground. The air is thick with disbelief, but not for Cheon. He smiles like he's been waiting for this exact moment. Finally, Hyunwook sheds the disguise of restraint and bares his fangs. To Cheon, it looks like a leopard sinking its teeth into its prey's neck. And now he watches with fascination, wondering if the predator will go all the way and cut off Won-suk's breath for good. But the fight isn't over. Won-suk, wild with rage and shame, suddenly regains momentum. He grabs Hyunwook and yanks him into the air, convinced that some trickery is at play. He prepares to slam Hyunwook into the ground with every ounce of strength he's got, determined to end this in a single, crushing blow. And in that instant, Hyunwook's calm cracks. For the first time, his expression shifts. Hyunwook fights back, and the intense scuffle continues. Then, without warning, Hyunwook pulls off a flying armbar at the last moment to save himself from the hit. At that, Cheon, watching this, thinks to himself that if that punch had landed, Won-suk might have broken his own wrist. He realizes that Won-suk instincts are sharper than expected. As the match drags on, Cheon starts wondering if a regular player like Hyunwook could really defeat a barbarian like Won-suk. He questions if he's overestimated the guy. Meanwhile, Won-suk taunts Hyunwook, asking if he really thinks he can crush his arm like that. Won-suk tries to trap Hyunwook with just his fingers, but Hyunwook uses his strength to twist out of it. Won-suk roars in frustration when Hyunwook locks him in a rear naked choke. Cheon's face brightens as he nods in approval, thinking that Hyunwook's body conditioning is impressive. Even without using any special skill, he's compressing Won-suk's carotid artery. Meanwhile, Hyunwook clings to Won-suk from behind, holding the choke. Won-suk yells, claiming he just needs to use brute force to throw him off. He activates a D-rank skill which is strengthening body transformation, but it's no use. He still can't break free. A warning flashes before him that he's using the transformation skill in a range beyond his current chokehold. Hyunwook doesn't ease up. He keeps applying pressure. Another warning appears that too much force could damage Won-suk's own body. One of the recruits nearby, worried, yells to the sergeant that they should intervene because someone like Won-suk, with his pride, would never tap out. Hyunwook, straining with all his power, thinks this much should be enough to warn Oh Sang-guk. On the other hand, Won-suk panics inside. He can't believe he might actually lose to someone like Hyunwook. The thought of being humiliated in front of everyone as he is the supposed future ace rattles him. Suddenly, an energy surge flows through him. Hyunwook senses it, surprised, as Won-suk's muscles swell and his shirt rips apart. With a scream, Won-suk bursts forth with full strength, but Hyunwook doesn't let go, and Cheon watching is shocked. Won-suk is using the same D-rank transformation twice in one match. Still, if he doesn't escape this choke, it won't matter. The question hangs in the air that who's the real predator here. Hyunwook tightens his grip even more and Won-suk's eyes bulge, and then he collapses, unconscious. The soldiers stare, stunned. Cheon concludes that Hyunwook is the real deal, a true beast. Behind him, an image forms like a lion roaring in victory. Later, everyone rushes over to Won-suk, lying still on the ground. One of them feels a pulse and lets out a sigh of relief. He's breathing, he's only fainted. They wonder aloud how to even turn his heavy body over. At the same time, Junmo runs to Hyunwook, telling him they knew he would win. Hyunwook grabs the person's wrist to stop him. Junmo keeps asking if he's hurt and says he was worried, but Hyunwook stays silent. He then makes an eye contact with Oh Sang-guk, who looks quite ashamed. Finally, Cheon asks for Hyunwook's name. He himself introduces himself as First Lieutenant Cheon Myong-ho, and Hyunwook immediately recognizes him. He stands at attention and salutes, introducing himself as Corporal Won-suk Hyunwook from the 1st Company. His mind races that why is he present here? Lieutenant Cheon smiles and says he's a raid tactics instructor from the Black Tiger unit. He tells Hyunwook his duel was impressive and hands him a card. Some bystanders whisper in shock as it's an invitation to the Black Tiger unit, the top troop in the AMT. They can't believe what they're seeing. Hyunwook hesitates and replies politely that he's just a regular player. The lieutenant brushes that off, saying ranks are made for ordinary people, and they need warriors like him. Hyunwook sighs inside. All these people are trying to drag him into things. He knows how closed off and political the military world is. The lieutenant still holds out the card, waiting. Hyunwook thinks about the trouble this might bring later, especially with villain groups. But he eventually accepts the card and thanks him for the offer, saying he'll consider it. He salutes respectfully. On the side, Oh Sang-guk clenches his fists and grits his teeth, clearly upset. That night, in the battalion commander's office, a conversation unfolds. One officer asks how the Black Tigers are doing. Lieutenant Cheon replies they're always short-staffed. The commander grumbles that these days, even C-rank soldiers get recruited by guilds. They spend so much time training talent, only for them to be snatched away. He chuckles and guesses Cheon is here for Sergeant Choi Young-jun, but Cheon says he's actually on leave. However, he did find an interesting soldier while he was here. He sips his tea and mentions Hyunwook. The battalion commander, curious, asks again if he's an interesting soldier. Cheon answers that Corporal Lee Hyunwook. Just then, the commander looks out the window and sees Hyunwook running outside, panting, with someone chasing behind. The commander makes a call and casually asks someone to find out what Hyunwook used to do before he joined the army. Meanwhile, Junmo chasing after Hyunwook is panting too, clinging to him and asking if he can become strong like him. Hyunwook shoves him away, annoyed, telling him to stop clinging. He can barely stay upright himself, but Junmo doesn't give up, saying he wants to be just like him. Hyunwook thinks this kid can't even tell he's dying from exhaustion right now. Meanwhile, the commander hangs up with a grin and says it's not his fault. It's Hyunwook's the one making everyone around him so greedy. On a busy street, a mother is seen dealing with a street vendor while her young son suddenly gets distracted and runs off, chasing a small creature that looks like a monkey. It darts behind a nearby wall, and the boy, full of curiosity, follows without thinking twice. But as soon as he catches a proper look at it, his expression changes. It's not a monkey after all, as it's something else entirely. With a frightened face, he realizes it's a kobold, its sharp features and fierce eyes enough to make him freeze. Moments later, more creatures like it appear behind him, and the ambush begins. Meanwhile, back with our hero, Hyunwook stands silently in front of the battalion armory, dressed neatly in uniform. Seo Yuna beside him informs him that the battalion commander has acknowledged his performance and, as a reward, has granted him a few days off along with the right to choose a weapon. However, she also adds that the platoon leader doesn't trust him and never did. Hyunwook, thinking back to his previous life, remembers how uptight that man always was and figures nothing much has changed. He decides it doesn't matter anymore whether the man believes in him or not. What's important now is the present. Then Seo Yunha turns back and gives him a teasing look, pointing out that he seems quite full of himself. She says that the marking patterns found on the goblins near the gate were all identical, which clearly indicates that Hyunwook managed to stop the first wave of the goblin assault all by himself. She questions if that's even possible and looks at him with disbelief. Hyunwook, gripping a sword, simply states that this is the weapon he's going with. She then warns him not to pick something at random just because she's offering help and advises him to think carefully, saying she's backing him into a corner for his own good. But Hyunwook already knows what he's doing and insists that he likes this one. The weapon he chooses is known as the Cloud Blade. At first glance, it seems like a weak and almost useless item. It absorbs water and releases wet fog, but Hyunwook knows better. He remembers how, in his past life, Sergeant Choi Young-jun became famous using this very sword, and he's confident that its true power will reveal itself in time. In fact, the blade's real name is Dark Hand of the Cloudmaster. He recalls the ancient mythology, where alongside Hwang Wung, 3 weather gods descended: Wind Lord, Rain Master, and Cloudmaster. Among them, the Cloudmaster was the one who controlled the clouds and carried a pitch-black hand, known as the Hand of Darkness. Upon closer interpretation, this hand symbolizes blades hidden in the mist, and those blades are none other than the weapons of the Thunder God himself. Once fully awakened, the sword becomes capable of summoning lightning strong enough to destroy even mid-sized monster engines on its own. With a powerful mix of steel and thunder, it becomes a weapon feared by many. Hyunwook tells himself that this time, he's going to be the one who takes it. Seo Eunha looks at him with slight disbelief and says that a rusty sword like that seems too small a reward, especially for what he has accomplished. But Hyunwook doesn't mind. He replies that he doesn't have the time to search for a different weapon, and that this one is more than enough. She watches him with surprise, and right then, an emergency alarm blares throughout the base as it's a gate break at Itaewon. As chaos begins, everyone scrambles to respond, but Hyunwook stands completely still. Seo Eunha observes his calm expression and wonders if he had somehow expected this all along. His composed face tells her that he isn't surprised at all. Soon after, the Blue Flower Guild arrives on the scene, their members fully geared up and looking intimidating. A few soldiers stare in awe, clearly seeing them for the first time. One whispers that the guild has sent backup for this gate, and another remarks on their gear, pointing out that every piece looks like it's been custom-made. The admiration continues as one of them jokes that selling just a single piece of their equipment would be enough to buy a luxury building in Gangnam. Someone else daydreams about finishing service and getting into Blue Flower, imagining a future of showing off wealth and strength. While the others admire from a distance, Hyunwook is already giving orders. He informs the squad that this time, they're facing a kobold gate, and although kobolds might look small, they're notorious for using poison needles and gas, which often lead to heavier casualties than fighting large monsters. He warns the team that this is no time to relax or joke around, and when one soldier brushes off the seriousness, Hyunwook doesn't hesitate to remind him of the danger. He talks about the possibility of kobolds gouging out someone's eyes while they're still alive, and suddenly, the mood shifts. He tells the squad to inspect their gas masks properly, emphasizing how essential they are against poisonous gas. A soldier watching all of this mocks the group and says it almost looks like the trash units are holding strategy meetings now, and from a distance, someone could mistake them for an elite support squad. Another soldier just rolls his eyes. Hyunwook continues giving instructions and calls out to Jincheol, telling him not to be careless even if they're positioned at the rear. He reminds him that many kobolds escape through tight spaces like sewers and narrow pathways, and tells him to have his gas mask ready at all times. But Jincheol responds with a cocky attitude, saying he doesn't need advice from someone like Hyunwook. Hyunwook warns him seriously, but Jincheol laughs and calls him Mr. Commander of City Square. Clenching his teeth, Hyunwook snaps back, telling the squad to stop joking around and return to their senses. He reminds them that this isn't the first time they've faced a real-life threat, and that death is a real possibility. He explains that kobolds are small and agile, which is why they must install motion sensors near underground passages and narrow routes. He gives them 20 minutes to finish the task and then calls out Junmo, assigning him a specific role. As Junmo replies, the others begin whispering among themselves, noticing that Hyunwook seems unusually tense and serious today. Before anyone can react further, something suddenly strikes Hyunwook in the neck. A strange object sticks into his skin, and his body collapses to the ground. At the same time, an explosion erupts, releasing poison gas throughout the streets. The soldiers around him panic and scramble for their masks as the area is engulfed in toxic mist. Kobolds have launched a surprise attack. Hyunwook lies on the ground in pain, eyes stinging and voice weak, calling for help. A kobold stands over him, holding a weapon and staring coldly at his bleeding face. Just when things seem hopeless, Park Junmo arrives and knocks the kobold back, quickly asking if Hyunwook is okay. But Hyunwook, still gasping, sees the danger and yells for Junmo to run. Junmo, confused, hesitates for a moment. Hyunwook shouts at him again to put on his gas mask immediately. In the blink of an eye, the kobold charges forward and slashes Junmo, blood splashing through the air as Hyunwook screams his name in horror. In that moment, a painful memory hits him as he remembers how Junmo had died in his past life, trying to protect him from kobolds just like this. Later, once the poison fades slightly, soldiers report that the sensors have been installed in this area and ask if they should bring more. Hyunwook, still recovering, tells them that today's main battle will take place here, in the rear zone. He calls out to Junmo, and when he responds with a respectful, "Yes, sir," Hyunwook gives him new instructions. He tells Junmo that he'll signal him when the time is right, and when that happens, he should lead the square members away from the operation zone. Junmo looks surprised by the sudden plan, and right then, something unexpected happens. Desertion is announced. Someone is withdrawing from the battlefield without orders, a felony under military law with a 5-year prison sentence in Korea. Everyone freezes in disbelief, but Hyunwook, calm and determined, says this isn't desertion, it's strategy. Announcements echo across the base, grim and heavy. Reports come in from Delta. Zones 1 and 3 report no survivors. Zones 4, 5, and 6 follow with the same fate. Gamma Team checks in, also confirming 0 survivors. Then comes the report from Beta that a kobold nest has been found in Zone B9, with an estimated count of over 200 enemies. Troops begin moving in under wide-range magic formation, and infiltration into the marked point is completed. Once the formation stabilizes, the attack squad prepares to activate the magic circle and stand by. Kobolds, dozens of them, begin surrounding the area, watching with piercing eyes. Hyunwook holds his position and orders everyone to stay ready. Suddenly, one of the kobolds leaps onto the magic circle, slashing at it with its weapon. Instantly, the soldiers open fire as commanded, and the flames erupt from the circle, hurling the kobolds backward with violent force. Without wasting time, another order goes out, to stick motion sensors all the way to the back of the drains. The team scatters and follows the command quickly. In Zone 2, the sensors are in place. In Zone 5, Hyunwook finishes attaching the last one. As he marks the spot with aluminum tape, someone walks up behind him and questions what he's doing. Hyunwook salutes and replies that he's following the manual, placing sensors and marking elemental points. But the man scoffs, calling the entire effort a waste of time. He mocks Hyunwook for taking a kobold gate so seriously, especially when the elite Blue Flower Guild is already on site. This man is Lieutenant Lee Minhwa, a mid-class wizard, and his tone is drenched in arrogance. He orders that the first platoon will begin operations in 20 minutes and tells the support squad to get into detox formation, acting as if their role is insignificant. But Hyunwook calmly responds that their assigned mission, as per the vice platoon commander, is to block any monsters that might escape toward civilian areas from the rear. Some soldiers nearby glance over, whispering that the platoon leader is acting up again, but they're more surprised that Private Lee is actually standing his ground. Lieutenant Minhwa, clearly irritated, clenches his teeth and retorts bitterly that Hyunwook seems to have forgotten his place, just because the battalion commander has shown him a little favor. He mocks him for being the only one in the barracks with real battle experience, then jabs a finger toward him, claiming he only has one battle under his belt anyway. Hyunwook's face tightens with anger, and it's obvious that Minhwa's words have hit a nerve. Just then, Sergeant Choi Seonha, a middle-class caster, steps in. She notices the tension and casually asks if something is wrong. Minhwa stammers for a moment, clearly caught off guard. Hyunwook smirks inwardly, knowing this was exactly why he provoked Minhwa in the first place. Sergeant Seonha is his weakness, and her presence disrupts Minhwa's authority. Minhwa tries to play it off, pretending he was only trying to guide the support squad through the site and teach them about real combat situations. He laughs it off and then turns to ask Seonha why she's here. She replies that the battalion commander has requested Hyunwook's presence. That gets Hyunwook's attention. He wonders if it's really him who sent the call. Meanwhile, from a nearby building, members of the support squad are quietly observing the entire exchange through a telescope. Their eyes are focused on Hyunwook and the platoon leader, watching things unfold. Seonha, noticing Hyunwook's frustration, softly tells him not to let Minhwa's behavior get to him. He nods, saying he still has more work to do. She offers to finish setting up the rest of the sensors so they can move quickly. Hyunwook grows more anxious by the second. Time is slipping away, and he starts wondering what the battalion commander is really up to. Back on the rooftop, one of the soldiers watching asks if it's even allowed for their attack squad to be deployed in a kobold raid when they're technically under the battalion commander's direct orders. Seo Yunha casually, replying that a commander's orders aren't to be questioned. Soldiers are meant to follow them without debate. At the temporary command post, Hyunwook finally arrives and announces his presence, stating that he was called for. The battalion commander looks at him with a serious expression, and Hyunwook is surprised to find First Lieutenant GYani Manhwa standing beside him. The commander gets straight to the point. He informs Hyunwook that he's assigning him to take the place of Choi Young-jun, currently on leave, and act as the temporary squad leader of the 1st platoon for the 2nd strike wave on the Kobold Gate. Hyunwook can barely hide his shock. In his previous life, this commander had never even acknowledged him. Why now? He tries to reason with him. He explains that since arriving at the base, he's only worked in the support squad and has never taken part in a real mission like this. He says it doesn't make sense to risk the lives of the 1st platoon in an actual battle without proper leadership or preparation. But the battalion commander simply replies that it's an order. Just as the weight of that decision sinks in, a new report comes in from Delta. The boss monster has exited the kobold nest. All personnel on red ground zones 2 and 3 are ordered to stay alert. Hyunwook's thoughts race. He knows kobolds will soon break past the front and rush the rear. If he doesn't make it in time, the entire support squad could be wiped out. He grits his teeth and tells himself he has to get out of there, no matter what. He turns back to the battalion commander and says he has something important to say. The commander allows it, nodding for him to speak. For a moment, Hyunwook stays silent. Elsewhere, on the rooftop, Seo Eunha is still watching. She then notices movement and quickly removes the lens cover, realizing that Hyunwook has taken off running. His pace is fast, almost desperate. Hyunwook yells down to alert the others about the gas. Alarms suddenly blare, emergency lights flash, and gas begins to spread rapidly through the air. Poison seeps into the streets, covering the area in thick fog. Hyunwook sees it happening and curses under his breath. It's happening faster than he remembers. At the temporary command post, Hyunwook approaches the battalion commander with something on his mind. He recalls rumors that during the commander's first mission, every soldier in his platoon had died. That memory alone has always stayed with him. So now, it just doesn't sit right with him that someone like the commander, once respected, is ordering him, a lone corporal from the overlooked city support squad, to risk his life in a combat test. He wonders if the battalion commander, whom he once admired, really sees regular soldiers as disposable pieces on a battlefield. The commander begins to explain that things aren't as they seem, that there's a reason why the attack squad is directly under his command. But before he can finish, Hyunwook cuts in with determination burning inside. He makes it clear that if following orders means sacrificing his comrades, then he won't comply. He's even willing to lay down his life for the mission, but not at the cost of innocent soldiers. The silence between them grows thick, and one of the soldiers yells out that disobeying orders during wartime could cost him his life. Hyunwook knows that well, and still, he can't shake the feeling that if he doesn't go now, the entire rear guard will be wiped out. After a moment, the battalion commander sighs and grants him permission to proceed with the original support mission. Internally, Hyunwook is caught off guard. He didn't expect the commander to bend, but the commander reminds him that he still disobeyed orders, and there will be consequences. Later, as they move into the danger zone, toxic gas begins to spread everywhere. He immediately covers his face and secures his gas mask. Cursing the situation under his breath, he rummages through his military-issued inventory pouch, pulls out his weapon, and activates it with water and oil. It's the Cloud Blade, a sword that absorbs water and emits a misty fog. The blade begins to shimmer, pulling moisture from the air. Visibility drops to nearly zero, and panic sets in. He thinks he might be too late. Somewhere nearby, he hears screams. Private An Minte is under attack, crying out for help. Junmo, holding his weapon, spots the kobold lunging at An Minte and fires just in time, causing the monster to fall back. With blood pouring from his own side, Junmo yells for the support squad to get An Minte inside a supply box with emergency barriers. Another soldier drags An Minte's bleeding body, announcing that he's been secured. Meanwhile, the vice platoon leader is frozen, overwhelmed and barely responsive. Junmo tries to snap her out of it, realizing that she's still young, barely in her 20s, and this is her first real mission. He feels powerless, unable to protect the others. Then, the grim reality hits him. They're almost out of ammunition, and the kobolds are closing in. Fear settles in, but suddenly something sparks in his mind. He wonders what Corporal Lee Hyunwook would do in a situation like this. That thought gives him clarity. As one soldier tries to resuscitate An Minte and calls for help, Junmo pulls out a hammer-like weapon from his pack. Another soldier warns they're completely out of bullets, but Junmo doesn't care. He notices the kobolds seem attracted to shiny objects. That gives him an idea. He decides to act as bait and orders everyone to retreat with the wounded and the vice leader. No one understands him at first, but he insists that it's his order as the acting vice leader. He raises the hammer and recalls Hyunwook's words, that the Blue Flower Guild is stationed just beyond the red ground. He instructs them to run the moment he signals. With all the kobolds now staring at him, he dashes off, yelling inside that even though his electric powers are weak, he'll use them to save lives. He runs with all his strength, the kobolds chasing right behind him. In a dramatic moment, a surge of blue energy surrounds the horde. In an instant, every kobold is cut down, their bodies collapsing in a splash of blood. Junmo, still running, stumbles right into Hyunwook and falls. Hyunwook tells him he heard everything. Then, with his cloud blade raised high, the spreading mist begins to neutralize the toxic gas. Junmo, catching his breath, is stunned. He admits he was only trying to mimic Hyunwook's bravery and got carried away. But Hyunwook smiles and tells him he did incredibly well. Junmo's eyes begin to fill with tears. As more kobolds approach in the distance, Hyunwook turns to him and expresses genuine pride. He says that Junmo's courage has set the stage beautifully, and now, since such a feast has been prepared, it's only right that he goes all in and devours the enemy with everything he's got. As he lifts his blade toward the sky, an intense energy courses from his fingertips. A sharp wave slices through the air, cutting across the kobolds' throats in a flash. A glowing blue circle forms around him, spinning like a protective barrier while bringing down nearby enemies. Their fallen bodies shimmer with crystal fragments scattered across the ground. He stares at the crystals and, with a slight grin, thinks they almost look good enough to eat. Junmo, nearby, wonders if he's seriously talking about the kobolds. But before he can reflect more, a fierce roar echoes and more of them are charging. Hyunwook braces himself, thinking how unfortunate it is that he can't eat thanks to the mess they're in. Then, looking at the advancing group, he casually asks where their boss is. The kobolds grow even more furious. Their foreheads glow red and their eyes narrow in rage. He throws them a challenging look, and suddenly they glance behind them. That's when he realizes something. No way, he thinks. Without wasting another second, he grabs his weapon and starts sprinting. He yells internally that Park Junmo must run, and fast. The squad is in serious danger. Meanwhile, on the other side, Yuna is struggling to see through the thick gas. It's impossible to track anything clearly, and at this rate, support won't be able to arrive in time. She orders the attack team to stay in position and shoot anything that tries to break through the gas barrier. The Blue Flower Guild must hold the line to protect civilians. A soldier acknowledges the command and adjusts his aim, asking if she's heading somewhere. She doesn't answer, but in her mind, she knows Lee Hyunwook seemed far too prepared, like he'd expected this chaos. There's something she needs to confirm. She puts on her gas mask and leaps from the rooftop. Elsewhere, chaos erupts near the military box. Seona is crying, begging for help, while the others try desperately to stabilize Private An Minte. His pulse is weak and he's barely breathing. A soldier pleads for the vice platoon leader to get a grip. One tries to bind a wound while another performs CPR, but there's a growing concern and something is tearing through the box's barrier. A terrifying energy surrounds it, and the soldiers realize it's not just any kobold, it's their master, casting a powerful spell with all his might. Panic rises as the soldiers feel the box losing its shield. They spot a swarm of kobolds rushing toward them, and dread spreads through the group. One soldier whispers they might really be finished. Just then, a figure breaks through the smoke with a furious shout. It's Hyunwook, charging forward, weapon in hand. He shouts internally that this is his squad. He hurls his weapon at the kobold master, who narrowly dodges it. But the blade curves and strikes the weapon slung across the kobold's back, cracking it. The master turns, eyes burning with anger, his mouth curled in a snarl. The mark on his head glows brighter, and the other kobolds react instantly, rushing forward in rage. Hyunwook gasps. There are too many, and they're too fast. He grabs Junmo, tells him to drop low, and prepares for a counter. He activates mental control, a skill that amplifies speed, but it drains too much energy. To compensate, he borrows power from Junmo's banked energy, barely managing to dodge the incoming strikes. A system warning flashes that he's lost control of the M7 Greatsword. Behind them, the kobold mage turns. Hyunwook realizes this creature isn't just another monster, as it's the one manipulating all the others. That makes it even more dangerous. It's not safe to have Junmo by his side in this fight. He orders him to retreat and focus on protecting the supply box. Junmo hesitates but agrees. When he asks for a signal, Hyunwook tells him there is none. Just run. Junmo bolts as instructed. The kobolds, furious, begin launching weapons from their backs again. Hyunwook quickly uses mental control to redirect them midair. He dives behind the barrier of the box, watching the final weapon spin toward him. The mage grins from the shadows, but Hyunwook manages to avoid a direct hit. Breathing heavily, he glances at the injured soldiers and sees Junmo rushing over. Junmo reports that An Minte is still unconscious. Hyunwook's heart sinks. He looks around for their medic, Seonha. She's curled in a corner, sobbing uncontrollably. He realizes she's in the middle of a full-blown panic attack. Without their healer, everyone might die. He calls her name, and she lifts her head, her face streaked with tears. He meets her eyes and pleads with her through his expression alone. They're still in the middle of a battle, and lives are depending on her now. Hyunwook turns to her with urgency in his voice, asking if she really plans to live the rest of her life drowning in regret. He knows all too well how terrifying that kind of life can be. While she sobs and looks at him, something stirs in the air. A pulse of energy bursts out, catching the attention of the kobolds from afar. A soft yellow light begins to glow as she finally channels her power. Hyunwook watches her closely and asks how the injured soldier is doing. She admits he's lost too much blood, partly because she froze earlier, but now she refuses to give up. He nods with quiet relief and thanks her. Turning to Junmo and the others, he informs them that he'll be borrowing their greatswords. Junmo, uneasy, catches on to what he's about to do, and his expression darkens. But Hyunwook just grits his teeth and says it's time to return the kobold's gift back to them, with interest. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the city, a luxury car rolls down the street. Inside, a young woman lounges with her legs crossed, chatting on her phone. She ends the call excitedly, saying something incredible has just happened. Without noticing, a spider crawls across her shoulder. She calmly brushes it off and remarks to herself that she'll need to make an appearance, perhaps offer her condolences. She's heading straight toward Itaewon. Back on the battlefield, Hyunwook stands tall, sword in hand, surrounded by blue-tinged blades floating in midair. The kobolds watch the display with alarm. At the edge of the area, their hidden guest steps into view, stepping directly onto a sensor marker. The dark mage kobold spots her from a distance, baring his teeth in a wicked grin and raising his weapon toward Hyunwook. But Hyunwook doesn't flinch. He keeps his gaze low, slowly lifting his sword with purpose. He thinks to himself that the prey has walked right into the trap. Everything is set up just as planned. The boxes, the sensors, the field pattern. The only unpredictable part was a small section of Zone A, mishandled by the vice platoon leader. But that doesn't matter now. He declares to himself that once the leader behind all of this is taken down, the game will be over. Activating mental detection, he scans the area for any unfamiliar metals. Anything that doesn't belong within the grid must be kobold related. He focuses his mind, tapping into mental control, a skill that consumes mana and allows him to manipulate metal, even increasing its weight if needed. He channels energy through his raised sword, sending shockwaves through the field. The blue light swirls around the kobolds before slicing through them like a storm. One of the blades races toward the kobold mage, but the monster quickly casts a spell, creating a magical shield in front of him. Hyunwook studies the barrier closely, his expression sharpening. With another sharp movement, he launches a second wave. Multiple great swords circle in on the mage, but the creature grits his teeth and summons all his power. The air rips apart as he holds back the weapons with everything he has. Undeterred, Hyunwook thrusts his arm forward again, fury blazing in his eyes. He demands his swords back, shouting in his mind as he forcefully uses mental control once more. A system alert suddenly flashes. His M7 greatsword is now bound by a weight beyond its controllable limit. Realizing brute force won't work, he prepares himself for another wave of attacks. The kobolds' marks begin glowing again, and they start launching metallic projectiles from their backs. Dozens of weapons hurtle toward him. He throws his arm in front of his face to block, but some pierce his limbs and armor. The mage signals his underlings, and the entire pack charges forward in unison. Hyunwook, now covered in cuts and embedded blades, grins through the pain. He nearly believes it's all over, just like in his past life. But no, not this time. He activates body strengthening, and the arrows embedded in his body drop to the ground like dead weight. If not for that skill, he knows he would have been finished. Now, with renewed strength, the great swords encircle the mage in a deadly spiral. He swings his arms in a crossed motion, unleashing a whirlwind of sharpened metal. A massive storm of blades spins into a blue tornado, sweeping through the remaining kobolds and tearing them apart. When the dust settles, Hyunwook stands still with arms folded, breathing steadily. Only one enemy remains, the kobold dark mage. Hyunwook locks eyes with the last standing foe, calling him out silently in his head. Now it's time to end this. The mage kobold clenches his sharp teeth and releases a thick cloud of toxic gas that quickly spreads through the area. Hyunwook stands right in front of him, shielding himself with his arm. His mind flashes with thoughts of how useless struggling seems now. He remembers how much effort he put into making sure this kobold would be the last one standing. The other square members had already turned their backs on him. They would probably curse him even more now. He starts using mental detection, staying alert, while the kobold remains still. Our guy wonders why there's no movement yet. He lowers his arm slightly, staying alert. Just then, the mage kobold's spell finally activates. A strange energy forms at his feet, gripping them tightly and pulling him to the ground. The kobold grins again, pleased to have caught his opponent. Hyunwook falls and lies there, pinned by the magical grip. Then his body is yanked upwards into the sky, flung by the kobold like a rag doll. A splash of toxic gas explodes midair, scattering over the nearby buildings. The kobold stands below watching, but then our guy's voice echoes. The kobold's eyes widen in disbelief as he sees our guy standing tall again, unfazed. His foot is planted into the ground, and his legs shine with reinforced strength. Blood runs down from the corner of his mouth, his teeth clenched in fury. Memories of betrayal and pain flash in his mind. He's been having too many of those lately. The kobold, weapon in hand, suddenly vanishes. Hyunwook senses the movement and turns sharply just as the kobold appears behind him. His mind flashes back to every painful moment he'd been stabbed in the back, both physically and emotionally. Rage boils inside him. He activates his strengthening transformation and lashes out with a brutal kick to the kobold's face, followed by a powerful sword strike that sends the creature flying across the battlefield. A cold satisfaction settles in as our guy finally feels the weight of revenge beginning to lift. He thinks about all the times he imagined this moment, the day he'd get payback on these backstabbers. The mage kobold is the first one down. It feels like justice. Toxic gas still leaks from the kobold's wounds as he lies on the floor. Our guy's cracked voice reminds himself that with the mask now broken, the kobold can no longer cast that annoying magic. A smirk forms as he prepares for the final blow, deciding it's time to cure that lingering PTSD for good. Blue energy gathers and blasts toward the kobold, ending him in a blink. The mage's weapon falls to the ground, and the container of toxic gas shatters into pieces. The creature lies motionless, but Hyunwook, still seething, doesn't stop. He grabs the kobold by the face, lifts him up, and stares coldly. He remembers every painful year he spent like a cripple because of this monster. The image of Park Junmo's death comes back. That friend had sacrificed himself in the past timeline. This is payback. Still gripping the kobold, our guy thrusts the cloud blade into his chest. The blade begins absorbing the blood, glowing as it fills with mysterious energy. Nearby, a dagger lies on the ground. Hyunwook picks it up, thinking the revenge isn't complete just yet. One last move remains. He slashes the kobold's face with the dagger, the same scar the creature once left on his. The kobold finally dies, the cloud blade still buried in his body, continuing to collect the dark energy. When the energy is full, the weapon's hidden power will awaken. Our guy breathes deeply, telling himself that this is the first moment from his past he has finally changed. Toxic fumes still drift through the air, but now he stands beside the kobold's body, eyes catching something glinting on the ground nearby. It's a medal. He picks it up and is immediately notified. It's called the Devil's Medallion, Inferno. The name hits him hard. It's a rare item, said to hold the power of the demon races, the highest-ranked medal in its series. Hyunwook feels a chill run down his spine. Why would it appear here? This item, he remembers, belonged to him, the Necromancer, the worst villain in human history. That man's undead army had turned the world into hell. Hyunwook reflects on how little was known about him, except for one shared growth trait. Back in his past life, he had hidden his ability to rank up from F because of the Necromancer. He'd barely survived that battle at the Blue Lava Golem workshop, and all he'd gotten was a cheap replica of this very medallion, and he wonders why it is the real one here. Hyunwook stares at it, fists tightening. Something doesn't add up. He figures he'll figure it out later. For now, he shoves the medallion into his mouth, preparing to absorb it. But before he can finish, a familiar voice calls out behind him. He freezes that it's Yunha. Panic creeps in. Sweat beads on his forehead. He wonders how much she saw. As he turns around, he notices someone else standing beside her. A new face greets him, and the woman compliments the battle and introduces herself as Catherine Yu, head of the Soul Attack Unit from the Blue Flower Guild. Yuna watches him closely, asking what he's hiding. He pretends not to understand, replying calmly while secretly trying to figure out how much she actually saw. Before he can settle into his thoughts, the Catherine claps her hands and compliments the battle, saying she only caught a glimpse from afar, but it looked impressive. Her tone shifts as she turns to Yunha and mentions how she's all grown up now, referring to her as the third daughter of the Paladin chapter. Yuna responds with authority, introducing herself as the captain of the 1st Battalion Attack Squad from the 3rd AMT Brigade. She reminds the woman that this area is a military zone and civilians have no business being here. Catherine, unfazed, walks over to Hyunwook and introduces herself. She's Catherine Yu, the head of Soul's Attack Unit from the Blue Flower Guild. Handing over her card, she casually reveals her identity, Yu Haina, the second daughter of the Blue Flower Guild's leader and an A-rank player. Hyunwook glances at the card, pretending to be surprised, but inside he already knows who she is. In fact, of all the names from his past life, hers is burned into his memory the deepest. She wasn't just some guild leader's daughter. Instead, she had once played a huge part in the destruction of mankind. There's no way he could forget her, even if he wanted to. His memories swirl back to the day Yuna stood in front of him, radiating strength and telling him to stay alive at all costs. That version of Yuna had protected him until her last breath, and it had been Yuhaina who killed her. Back in the present, Yuhaina hints that a great opportunity is within his grasp. He clenches his wrist, caught between old wounds and current confusion. Luna keeps her distance but remains firm, reminding Yuhaina again that this is a restricted zone. Yuhaina turns sharply, annoyed by the military formality, saying soldiers should know how to properly address someone of her status. She insists she should be recognized as the department head of the Soul Attack Unit, not just some civilian. The tension between them thickens. Hyunwook stands uncomfortably between the two women, unsure where to look. Just then, a car rolls up with headlights flashing. A moment later, the battalion commander steps out. Yuna salutes him immediately and reports, but he gestures for silence while gripping his weapon. His eyes scan the toxic gas still lingering and the kobold corpses scattered on the ground. Hyunwook begins to sweat, realizing things might get messy fast. He knows there's no way to explain this cleanly. The commander's serious expression makes it clear he expects answers. Then surprisingly, the commander greets Yuhaina. He acknowledges the Blue Flower Guild's support, but firmly states that unauthorized entry into military zones isn't allowed, even for high-ranking civilians. He politely asks her to leave. Yuhaina, visibly annoyed, mutters under her breath about how rigid soldiers are. She dramatically plants a lipstick-stamped business card on a nearby surface, winks at Hyunwook, and tells him to give her a call. With that, she turns away. The commander shifts his attention to Hyunwook and suddenly promotes him on the spot. He announces that Hyunwook will now serve as the squad commander for the Kobold operation, tasking him with rescuing any remaining survivors and organizing the team. Hyunwook stands there stunned, wondering what the commander could possibly be thinking. The commander also says he expects a debriefing later that day, to be given in person. Hyunwook nods, still trying to wrap his head around how fast the situation flipped. He catches Yuna's eyes from a distance. She looks at him, and he looks back, quietly thinking that somehow he managed to escape this crisis, at least for now. A week goes by and it's now the 1st Battalion of the 3rd AMT Brigade. Hyun-wook receives a notification that the absorption of the Devil's Medallion, Inferno, is finally complete. His controllable metal weight has increased by nearly 500 grams. A strange sensation builds in his abdomen, something like a hidden chamber forming inside him. He's warned that intense pain is likely. He braces for it, remembering how painful it had been the last time. This body still isn't strong enough. He stumbles into a bathroom, clutching his stomach, barely breathing through the pain. A moment later, someone appears outside the door. He opens it slowly and sees Junmo standing there. Junmo teases him, assuming he's hiding something inside. Hyun-wook tries to deny it while holding his stomach, but Junmo keeps joking. Hyun-wook insists it's not what it looks like. The Cobalt Gate that had been underestimated had come at a high cost. There were many casualties. Thankfully, Sergeant Choi Seonha and Private An Min-tae made it out of critical condition and were sent to the military hospital. After that incident, Hyun-wook gave up the idea of doing everything alone. He began training the support squad so they could at least defend themselves in emergencies. But this decision came with two problems. First, Seonha began bothering him constantly after that day. Second, the material commander started pressuring him to stop working as a non-commissioned officer and become a commissioned officer instead. The commander even claimed that the Itaewon operation proved Hyun-wook was the ideal candidate for his vision, a military where rank didn't matter. Hyun-wook didn't know why he was being dragged into someone else's dream, but he promised to think about it during his vacation. 3 weeks pass, and the vacation finally starts. On the first day at Seoul Station, he receives another message. He's unlocked a new skill, Breath Room. The skill has two effects. One increases the speed of metal absorption. The other allows him to store metal inside his body and release it as a fire breath attack. But achieving this came with side effects, mainly people continuing to assume he's doing strange things in the restroom. He looks at himself in the mirror, feeling the pressure. He knows he's not yet strong enough for the next gate, and the world outside is already asking tough questions. News spreads and people are demanding to know if Seoul Station will be abandoned. The military and authorities haven't given a clear response. Hyun-wook feels the weight of it all. If he doesn't improve, he really might die next time. He tells himself that this vacation must be used to prepare fully. Now is the time to truly change the future. Later, Seonha, standing nearby with a cigarette, complains about how long it's been since her last vacation. She struggles with her lighter, cursing under her breath. Just then, she spots Hyun-wook and walks up to him, asking if he has a lighter. He stares at her in disbelief and calls her name. Seonha feels a bit embarrassed as she realizes she might have let her real personality slip out. The train arrives and the atmosphere becomes awkward, and for a while, silence lingers between her and our guy sitting beside her on the train. She tries to break the tension by bringing up his vacation, guessing it must be his first one in a while, and that his parents must be happy. But he tells her that his parents passed away when he was a kid. She looks at him with concern, but he simply shares how, although childhood was tough and lonely, adulthood brought him close to people who feel like family. He explains that his friends and co-workers are the ones who constantly push and support him. Calling them comrades feels just right. Their train eventually reaches at Yeongdeungpo. With just 4 days and 3 nights of vacation, he begins thinking seriously about the future. The first step in his preparation is clear that he needs money. A small smile forms on his face as he stands before a massive poster of the Blue Tree Guild that reads, "We support our players." He mentions that the honor of Blue Tree is already a multi-trillionaire, a man named Gordon Precy. With a serious face, he reflects on how Gordon bought powerful people and players, collected high-level gear, and gradually gained full control of the system. Thinking back, he realizes one core reason they lost to the villains was money. Even if matching Gordon's wealth is impossible, he tells himself that having just enough to survive this money game is a must. He already knows where and when the important future events will take place, and which ones will bring in massive profits. As banners of the Blue Tree fill the buildings and streets, he decides that smart, early investments could give him an edge. But for that, he needs someone trustworthy, someone who won't cheat him at any cost. Heading toward the Hope Guild, he climbs the stairs, thinking about who he can trust with this responsibility. Just then, a loud voice breaks his thoughts and it's someone's yelling angrily. He pauses and looks toward the noise. A man is grabbing another man by the collar, yelling at him and threatening to hit him. The man being scolded tries to defend himself, saying he's been trying to find jobs, but the other one cuts him off, furious about being offered guard duties at events, calling it humiliating. As both men notice Hyun-wook standing at the door, their expressions change. The one being yelled at greets him nervously, while the aggressive one, who is Wonchul, instantly changes his tone. He lets go of the shirt and walks over with a fake smile, recognizing him as the Tin Can pilot. The two shake hands, recalling their past. Wonchul introduces himself as an awakened player now, and our guy responds politely, though deep down, he knows there's no friendly connection between them. The mood shifts as Wonchul mocks him, pretending their past didn't exist. But old memories hit hard. Back in school, Wonchul had once humiliated him in front of everyone and mocking his powers, slapping him across the face, and calling him a loser. Those words, that slap, that shame, it all comes back. In the present, Wanchul, now a strong player of the Hope Guild, grits his teeth, threatening to beat him just like in school. He wants to show dominance again. But this time, Hyunwook stands still, unbothered. As Wanchul prepares to hit him, a sudden shift in energy fills the room. Blue energy sparks around our guy, and weapons zoom in from all directions. A pen, a dagger, all pulsing with energy, aiming dangerously close to Wanchul. Calmly, he tells Wanchul that while he might not win today, he can definitely leave him half-crippled and injured so badly, he'd feel like he'd been hit by a full army unit. Wanchul, shaken, clenches his teeth, his confidence cracked. Just then, someone enters the room, reminding our guy that they need to leave soon for an event. With a snap, the weapons drop to the ground. He instantly switches his expression and apologizes to Wanchul, pretending it was all a joke. Then, without warning, he hugs him tightly, leaning in close and whispering about how the White Tiger Guild kicked Wanchul out after he wet himself and ran away during his first raid. That memory from the past flashes, the yelling, the fear, the shame. Wanchul freezes, furious but unable to react. Our guy reminds him that making a scene by picking a fight with a low-rank player won't help his image. He's doing him a favor, really. Later, inside the apartment, the two sit at a table. His friend, still in disbelief, asks if the stock tips he gave were real. Our guy remains calm as his friend checks the data on an iPad. Seeing the numbers, he bursts out, stunned by the life-changing opportunity. Somewhere else, the numbers of players are growing restless. One of them complains that instead of wasting time guarding, they should try raiding a gate at least once. Another guard tells him to relax, but the first one keeps ranting. That's when a car pulls up, and an angry man storms in, yelling at them for making noise in a reserved area. He walks up to Wanchul, shouting insults and mocking his age and literacy, furious that zones were messed up again. Before he can finish, Wanchul punches him so hard he flies backward. Blood splashes everywhere. Shocked guards freeze as the punches continue, each one heavier than the last. With his face covered in blood and eyes burning red, Wanchul stands over the man asking him to search for Hyunwook, yelling with rage. His voice echoes as he screams out the name of Hyunwook and he swears that he'll kill him. Meanwhile, with our boy, Park Cheol-soo mentions that if these stocks really soar like those figures show, it'd be life-changing. However, he admits it's tough to accept so easily. It's a natural reaction that anyone would feel skeptical if someone suddenly claimed to help them make such huge profits. He wonders if maybe someone gave Hyunwook this info just to keep an eye on him. In response, Hyunwook calmly asks if, based on everything so far, Cheol-soo thinks he's trustworthy. Without hesitation, Cheol-soo responds that he does. Still, Hyunwook reflects silently to himself that, apart from the source being his past life, everything he's said is real. He reminds himself that Cheol-soo needs to believe him. Eventually, he just nods and insists it's all true. Right then, Cheol-soo checks a message on his phone and, after reading it, finally accepts that it's legit. Hyunwook tells him that he also wants to hand over his investment to him, 20 million won. It isn't an enormous amount, but it's something his parents left behind. Cheol-soo is surprised and asks if Hyunwook genuinely has faith in him. He thanks him, then adds that nobody in the world is truly talentless nowadays. Talent is simply what people call a superpower. He tells Hyunwook not to be too hard on himself and suggests they just hang in there until their talents are recognized too. Hyunwook thinks to himself that this investment is his way of repaying Cheol-soo for the only warmth he ever received in his past life, back when he had nothing. He knows that in the future, humanity will come into contact with otherworldly beings who can communicate. The technology gained from them will be a game changer in the Gate War. That's why he needs someone skilled in understanding these beings, someone who can share that knowledge with him. Later, Hyunwook walks through Yeongdeungpo Blacksmith Alley. He asks the blacksmith about the price of a mana stone. The blacksmith casually asks how much he has in mind. Hyunwook thinks about how this is his second preparation for the future. With 7 dwarven artisans, he plans to craft his very first master-grade item. He wants to secure these blacksmiths before any villains realize their true value. Soon, he arrives at artisan Kang Jong-doo's workshop and greets him. The artisan responds while still focused on crafting a javelin. Hyunwook notices the weapon and realizes it's a javelin made of Ori Halcon. Though it looks rough, it's the same spear that will later pierce the heart of Dragon Terax. He now understands why this rundown shop became the birthplace of a master-grade weapon. Suddenly, a girl appears and, after spotting Hyunwook, throws out a sarcastic remark while calling him crusty. Jongdu scolds her lightly while asking how she could speak to a customer like that. She brushes it off while saying he does the same anyway. Hyunwook recognizes her that it's his old comrade, Kang Baekseol. She stares at his fancy trench coat and Laurent boots, clearly surprised by his style. Then she quickly changes her tone while realizing he's no average guy. She eagerly asks what he needs, clearly excited. Hyunwook knows her obsession with money is typical for a dwarf, and now that he has her attention, he plans to earn her trust. She's practically ecstatic when she sees he's spending 18 million won while calling him a boss instead of a customer. Kang Jong-do, on the other hand, seems skeptical. He points out that Hyunwook isn't a mage, so buying toxic magic metals and Mistral tungsten alloy beads seems pointless. He wonders if the money will just rot unused. Baek-sol cuts in while telling her grandfather to chill. Hyunwook must have some use for it. Hyunwook nods while saying it's just what he needs, and that he'll be back for more trades. Kang Jong-do agrees, while Baek-seol cheerfully tells him to return soon. Hyunwook quietly thinks to himself that he's sorry. Unlike their other comrades, he'll be pulling her back into the fight again. She waves him off with a friendly, "See you next time," and Hyunwook silently promises to protect her no matter what this time around. With the end of his vacation approaching, he plans to build up his poison resistance and improve how much metal weight he can control. Normally this would have taken much longer, but now he has a new skill: breath room, fire. Suddenly, he receives a system warning that extreme pain is being inflicted. The alerts keep coming, but he just groans and tells them to shut up. He already knows. He braces himself and mutters that there's not much time before the Seoul Station gate. He has to endure. He has to consume it all. He must hold on. Hyunwook can't afford to stop now. 2 days later, a young guy mentions to Wonchul that Hyunwook's still locked in there. No idea what he's doing, but he hasn't come out in 2 days straight. Just then, Hyunwook gets a notification that he's been poisoned by various toxic elements. He checks his stats and sees he's gained Tier 2 poison resistance, not as high as he hoped, but it's enough. He now has the strength to carry about 60 daggers, and with it, a new skill: Metal Smash. He realizes this powerful move can destroy almost any gear in a single hit. Gaining this ability alone makes everything worth it. Suddenly, Wonchul shows up and notices him. He's surprised Hyunwook isn't even shocked. He sneers, saying Hyunwook must be hiding out here, but Hyunwook calmly reminds him he's a soldier with many rules to follow. He tells him to leave. Wonchul doesn't buy it. He thinks Hyunwook's just making excuses now that he feels cornered. He threatens him and declares he's going to end him, but as soon as he sees Hyunwook's body, he's taken aback. Hyunwook tells him to move the fight outside. He doesn't want civilians to get dragged in. Wonchul laughs bitterly while saying how dare he act bold to the end. Maybe 2 days ago it was an act, but today it's real. They begin to clash. In the middle of it, Hyunwook asks just one thing: that why go this far, when it doesn't even compare to what Wonchul did to him. Wonchul mocks him, calling him cocky for landing one lucky strike. He tells him to stop looking at him with those eyes. Hyunwook notes to himself that Wonchul doesn't even care about the civilians around. He realizes then his enemy isn't focused just on him. To avoid any more damage, Hyunwook suddenly sprints away. Wonchul, caught off guard, yells after him while chasing with full rage. He's not backing down. He wants to kill Hyunwook no matter what. Wonchul watches closely as Hyunwook uses strengthening body transformation, metal control, and then skill chain. Right away, he notices that Hyunwook changes direction in midair, something that grabs his attention. At that moment, Hyunwook thinks to himself that he might not be able to fly as freely as he could in his past life. However, by linking strengthening body transformation with metal control, he's able to move his body with this much control. After observing that, Wonchul remarks that the military might have handed Hyunwook some cheap buffs, but in his eyes, these little tricks are still useless. Meanwhile, people in a nearby building catch sight of the scene and start murmuring while wondering what's even happening. They question if those people down there are actually players. During the battle, Wonchul challenges Hyunwook while asking if he's just going to keep dodging like a coward. He provokes him while calling him out to fight just like before. While that happens, the folks in the building warn others not to go down to the first floor. They think a group of players is making a mess down there, so they mention they've already reported it and decide to wait it out. As the chaos builds, Hyunwook becomes aware of the civilians watching everything. Being a military officer, he realizes he can't fight back too fiercely if someone innocent gets hurt. It might mess up his whole plan for the Seoul Station gate. Wonchul, while picking up on this, brings it up and notes how many people are watching them. Then he figures, if the crowd is a problem, he just needs to erase the problem. Hyunwook, now worried, questions if Wonchul plans to destroy the building and reminds him there are innocent civilians inside. Wonchul brushes it off while saying those people don't matter to him. But then he adds that they do matter because to him, Hyunwook and the others are all trash, and the crowd is just part of the same mess. He rants that if they irritate him, they deserve whatever's coming. He tells Hyunwook to squirm all he wants if he's so desperate to stop him. At that moment, Hyunwook snaps. He tells himself that Wonchul crossed the line, and now it's time to end his life as a player. Without hesitation, he strikes Wonchul's leg with force. The hit is brutal, and Wonchul screams in pain. His leg breaks from the impact of Hyunwook's metal smash, and blood pours from the wound. Wonchul backs off while panicking and warning Hyunwook not to come any closer. But Hyunwook, while keeping his cool, says he's going to ask one last time that why is he going this far. Wonchul, clearly unbothered, responds by scoffing at the question. He makes it clear that if something as annoying as a mosquito dares to bother him, he'll crush it without thinking twice. Hearing that, Hyunwook understands something deeper. He believes that someone like Wonchul, who was thrown out from a group of strong players, is only acting out of frustration. He mutters that players drunk on their own ego and superiority never deserve that title because those types always turn into villains in the end. Wonchul, now enraged, snaps and questions what someone as worthless as Hyunwook thinks he can actually do. He mocks him for acting like he's something special, and calls him a nobody. But Hyunwook doesn't flinch. He warns him calmly that he'd better never show his face again. If he does, next time it won't stop at just breaking a leg. Wonchul freezes in disbelief, clearly stunned by what just happened. Meanwhile, Hyunwook quietly mutters to himself that Wonchul should feel lucky he's dealing with a military officer. He reminds himself that it's true. He can't let someone like Wonchul ruin his opportunity to rescue comrades and bring down the villains. In his official report, he simply explains that he tried to stop Wonchul, nothing more. Later on, at the Awakened Task Force, Hyunwook meets with an officer who points out that his story lines up with what the witnesses claimed. The man notes that Wonchul is known to be both dangerous and cruel, and honestly, Hyunwook got off easy. He adds that it's rare for someone with such a low rank to walk away from a fight like that without even a scratch. Hyunwook nods and mentions that it was only because his greave suddenly activated at the right time. The officer then informs him that he's free to go. Hyunwook expresses his thanks and thinks to himself that he always saw the F rank as a burden. He never thought it would end up helping him stay out of trouble like this. But just then, a junior officer hurries over to the senior one while calling his attention to something. He reveals that there were no issues with the durability or mana control of Lee Wonchul's greave. The senior officer raises an eyebrow and wonders out loud if that's the case. Is he really supposed to believe that an F-rank player just crushed a C-rank's armor and beat him without so much as a scratch? It just doesn't make sense. Right after that, Hyunwook quickly slips out and takes off into the sky. As he soars through the air, news reaches him about the crisis unfolding at the gates of Seoul Station. Since the gate opened at 1524, the confirmed civilian casualties now stand at 745. Other than the first, second, and third waves, this one stands out as a massive monster disaster. This tragedy has now sparked growing criticism from experts and civil organizations. They're questioning the serious flaws and weaknesses in the current gate response system. Hearing all this, Hyunwook realizes something crucial. Unlike the past two gates, he wasn't present when today's gate opened. That means he's working with limited insight, and unpredictable events could unfold. Among all past disasters, the Seoul Station incident ranks among the most devastating. He wonders whether he can really face something like this with his current progress. Part of him wants to just go wild, break in, and save the civilians immediately, but he holds himself back. He knows there's a villain hiding within all of this, and if the enemy slips away, he'll miss his chance to change what's to come. Now only 2 minutes remain. Suddenly, the vice platoon leader finds him and hurries over. She salutes, clearly upset. She brings up that she heard he was taken to the police station last night and mentions how the whole unit is in a frenzy. Hyunwook asks how she even knew where to find him. She reminds him that he said he had plans at Seoul Station for the final day, but questions why he hasn't answered any of her calls. At that point, Hyunwook starts thinking to himself that Choi Se-yeona wasn't here in his previous life. So what's she doing here now? Could it be because his actions already changed the past? He tells her that his phone got smashed. Now with only 1 minute left before the worst gate in history tears open, tension builds. She sighs and accepts the excuse, but quickly presses him for details about why he went to the police. She wants a full explanation, but Hyunwook knows there's no time for that now. He reminds himself he has to stay focused on the plan. She becomes annoyed by his silence and demands an answer. Right then, he suddenly scatters a handful of beads on the ground. She jumps back, confused and frustrated while asking what he's even doing. She scolds him for dropping something like that right in the middle of their conversation. Then she pauses while staring at the beads and asks what on earth they are. Hyunwook stays calm and simply instructs her that when he gives the signal, she must run toward where the gas masks are located. And in the next moment, he gives her the signal. At Seoul Station, a young girl is with her mother, who is about to leave from there. Her mom tells her to go back, but the girl wonders why she keeps telling her to leave, saying she just wants to see her off. Her mother explains she doesn't want her to get exhausted. Still, the daughter reminds her that they don't even know when they'll meet again. The mother, while trying to stay positive, responds that they'll definitely meet next time. As they embrace one another tightly, a sudden explosion shakes the entire station. A massive bomb goes off, and in an instant, her mother disappears without a trace. The girl breaks down while calling out for her. Soon after, an announcement is made that an unfortunate event has taken place in that zone. Meanwhile, Hyunwook is on site with the vice platoon leader. He mentions that when he gives the sign, she needs to move quickly and put on the gas mask. As they look above and begin running, he eventually signals her. At that moment, a terrifying monster appears in front of the fleeing civilians. Everyone panics while trying to escape the scene. Hyunwook turns to the girl, urging her to get to safety and grab a gas mask from the passenger aid point. She responds that she's a soldier too and has no intention of surviving alone. Although not trained for combat, she plans to assist with evacuating civilians and helping the injured. She's unsure what exactly Hyunwook is planning, but she trusts him anyway. Before heading off, she orders him as her subordinate to stay alive no matter what. Hyun-wook accepts her command and moves forward. Elsewhere, Choi Jung-chol confronts Kim Kang-seok with disbelief. He questions whether it makes any sense to promote a low-ranking F-grade soldier to officer status. Kang-seok responds firmly while saying he doesn't believe talent for being a good officer is only measured through mechanical ranking systems. This surprises Jung-chol. Kang-seok continues while pointing out that ranks aren't directly tied to a player's level, but are rather a general indicator assigned by the training center based on expected performance and raid efficiency. While players do get re-evaluated as they progress, many valuable skills are overlooked while leading to unnecessary deaths on the field. Jung-chol asks if Kang-seok is trying to lecture him, but Kang-seok denies it. Then Jung-chol brings up a serious concern that most experienced soldiers are leaving to join civil guilds, and if AMT begins promoting F-rank soldiers, it might ruin the reputation of the entire military system. He then adds that while Kang-seok might have noticed something unique in that boy, to him, someone low-ranked is still insignificant. Out of nowhere, his phone rings. It informs him that a gate has emerged inside the territory of the 1st Battalion post, and its exact location turns out to be Seoul Station. To make matters worse, it's classified as an unlucky event. Both Jung-chol and Kang-seok freeze in surprise as they take in the unexpected news. At the same time, over at Seoul Station, the monster is engaged in a fierce clash with Hyun-wook and the other soldiers, who are doing everything they can to bring it down. One of the team members questions the leader while pointing out that the spider-like creature isn't listed in any of the field manuals they've seen before. The creature is unbelievably aggressive, pushing its way toward the panicked crowd. However, the soldiers quickly activate their shields to guard against its violent strikes. In the middle of the fight, the monster delivers a powerful blow while knocking one of the soldiers to the ground. Recognizing the urgency, GYani Manhwa remarks that fire-based attacks won't be useful anymore. He advises the squad to shift to frost runes and immobilize the beast's limbs. Instantly, they begin swapping tactics and launch frost attacks at the creature. Ice starts to spread everywhere while chilling the area. GYani Manhwa observes the creature's massive size and thinks it won't hold up for too long. Seizing the moment while its legs are frozen, he rushes forward while telling his teammates to maintain the frost rune pressure because he's going in for a direct assault. He charges ahead while activating Shield Guard and suspending himself mid-air right in front of the monster. Just then, Hyun-wook steps in and believes there's no time left for hesitation, and it's time to act. He unleashes his Metal Smash skill, though he gets a warning that his mana is dropping fast. As he continues the attack, both GYani Manhwa and the nearby soldiers stare in disbelief. Hyun-wook quickly notices the skill is making an impact. In that moment, he becomes certain that not only can he stop this gate, but he also has the chance to claim the full reward for shutting it down. Fueled by that thought, he charges toward the creature and mentally taunts it while daring it to scream and cry all at once. He vows to drain every last bit of its energy. With force, he hurls himself forward and wonders whether the beast's insides are as tough as its shell. Activating the metal spin technique, he digs deep into the creature while comparing the sensation to grinding it up like a blender. Watching all this unfold, GYani Manhwa is stunned. He realizes that even the full squad of guards couldn't take down this monster, yet Hyun-wook is overpowering it solo. Despite witnessing countless A-rankers in previous raids, he admits to himself that he's never met anyone so relaxed in battle. It dawns on him that this must be what an S-rank player feels like, something he had only heard tales of until now. However, he can't help feeling annoyed, as Hyun-wook's sudden appearance ends up disrupting his personal quest. Afterward, GYani Manhwa introduces himself as a member of Seoul Station's Guard Team 2, and curiously asks if Hyun-wook is actually an S-rank player. But Hyun-wook warns him not to let his guard down just yet. Manhwa is taken aback by the comment. Then Hyun-wook reveals that the first wave isn't finished, and deep inside, he becomes fully confident. The battle just fought has removed all doubt. The gate at Seoul Station, he's decided will be the one he personally closes. At Seoul Station, both the 1st and 3rd Battalions are ordered to gather and prepare the red ground setup until 6 rounds are complete, and then proceed with the execution. 2 troops stand nearby while observing everything. One remarks that the scene, if not for the presence of military squads, brings back certain memories. The other agrees, but points out that with this kind of scale, it would seem easier to just bring together all the mage players and strike that dome down with some heavy magic. However, the first one responds that it's not something made with magic, it's a rule established by the system itself. Breaking it isn't possible unless someone overrides the system. So, for now, they've got no choice but to wait for the timer to run out. Soon after, an alert comes in, reporting an unlucky event occurring in the area. Helicopters then appear above, and Kim Kang-seok along with Yoo Hae-na arrive on the spot. Kang-seok inquires about how many members of the Blue Flower Guild are still under level 15. She responds, a bit offended, that there's no way the top-ranked Blue Flower Guild has anyone that low-leveled. Still, she questions whether he's really thinking of sending a rescue team inside, because doing so is practically sending them straight into a trap. But Kang-seok responds firmly, expressing that there are over 800 people trapped inside and he can't just prioritize their own lives over those. Besides, there's still a trump card inside that dome, and that changes everything. Meanwhile, inside the station, Hyun-wook is facing the creature head-on. He activates his smash skill, then follows up by triggering strengthening body transformation and metal control. He quickly orders his team, reminding them to do just as they did before, freeze the target. GYani Manhwa nods in response and releases a frost blast. The other troops continue to bombard the creature with one frost blast after another. As they keep it pinned down, Hyun-wook once again manipulates the metal with his control ability. He focuses on the beast, keeping its attention locked. He doesn't let up while delivering a sharp metal spin attack that crashes into the opponent with force. But the monster isn't down yet. It rises while letting out a deafening growl. Hyun-wook stares it down and mentally tells the creature that if it's finally awake, it can follow its comrade to the same fate. Yet, in the middle of the battle, he's notified that his mana is draining fast. Still, he doesn't stop. He charges forward again and delivers another smash hit to the beast. From a hidden spot, a man watches everything unfold. His thoughts are filled with disbelief. There's no way someone at Hyun-wook's level should be able to take down something like a train. He can't understand why a guy like him even ended up at Seoul Station. His plans are completely messed up now, and he never expected his very first mission to fall apart like this. Right after that, the man receives a notification letting him know he's officially failed to complete main quest No. 1. Frustration instantly kicks in and he feels visibly irritated. Meanwhile, Hyun-wook glances around and mentions to the guards that it seems like the first wave has ended. He asks them to gather nearby. One of the guards responds with gratitude while admitting they couldn't have held off the first wave without his help. Then, while noticing his strength, the guard comments that he must be a high-ranking player and politely asks for his name. However, Hyun-wook stays quiet while offering no response. Noticing the silence, GYani Manhwa checks in with him while wondering if something's wrong. At that moment, Hyun-wook begins to think to himself, something feels off. That person isn't here, but he clearly remembers hearing that the guy was assigned as a guard. Then suddenly the vice platoon leader arrives and calls out to Hyun-wook. Seeing her, he realizes he had completely forgotten about her presence. He quickly turns to her and inquires whether all the civilians have been safely evacuated. As this happens, GYani Manhwa observes quietly while thinking to himself that S-rank players are usually not required to serve in the military, simply because the government has no way to manage or control people with that kind of power. Sayana then explains the situation calmly. Because the spiders were massive in size, they divided the civilians into smaller groups while moving each one into a room connected by tight passageways. Fortunately, no one ends up seriously hurt during the evacuation. But she's not done. She wants answers. She firmly asks for a full rundown of what happened during the first wave and demands every detail to be reported to her. Then she shifts her attention to Hyun-wook and directly asks about his military rank. At that point, Hyun-wook feels the pressure of time slipping away. He quickly thinks to himself that there's no use handling all of this properly as impossible with the limited time left. He brushes aside the question while expressing that rank isn't what matters right now. What's more important is his growing suspicion that this might actually be a double gate. That thought stuns both Sayana and GYani Manhwa. They're caught off guard by the possibility. Hyun-wook, meanwhile, keeps analyzing the situation. With over 800 civilians scattered throughout the area, he knows the enemy could easily hide among them. And if the second wave begins while they're still searching, that person will get another opening. So in that moment, he makes up his mind that they need to act faster than him. They can't afford to fall behind again. Then, Kang-seok turns to Lieutenant Huimin and appoints him as the field commanding officer for the Seoul Station rescue mission. Huimin, who holds the position of second platoon leader, immediately grasps the weight of the order. Without wasting time, he gathers everyone's attention and urges them to stay focused. Following that, Kang-seok speaks again, this time with a serious tone. He shares that it troubles him to send his lower-level troops into a dangerous mission like this, but the safety of civilians depends on them. He reminds them that their duty as soldiers is to protect lives, and all the troops firmly acknowledge the order. Then, while turning back to Huimin, Kang-seok adds another instruction that once Hyun-wook is encountered in the field, he must be included actively in all tactical decisions. This leaves Huimin stunned, clearly not expecting Hyun-wook's name to be brought up in such a way. Suddenly, another double gate shows up in the area, and it too is flagged as an unlucky event. Inside the gate, monsters are present, but strangely, they're all lying lifeless. A system notification pops up for one of the individuals while stating that monsters in the area won't launch attacks against him. Confused, the person looks around at the dead monsters and begins to realize what that message actually meant. It wasn't that they'd ignore him, they're just already dead. He questions what exactly is going on here. Looking at the system prompt, the unknown man steadies himself. He reminds himself to stay composed. If he can just finish this quest, he'll be upgraded to a regular villain. He's been handed a rare, life-changing opportunity that most players would never even come close to receiving. With that thought, he regains his confidence and stands tall. Just then, out of nowhere, Hyun-wook arrives on the scene. The villain immediately reacts and tries to play it cool while claiming to be a railway guard. But Hyunwook isn't fooled for a second. He calmly lays out the entire scheme, how the man planned to hide among the citizens, wait for the guards to get wiped out during the first wave, and if other players were mixed in with the civilians, he would pose as a guard to avoid attention before turning on them. Hyunwook remarks how clever the plan was while pointing out the level of thought put into it. The identity of the villain is then revealed, Yang Juseop. He seems surprised and asks Hyunwook who he is and whether they've met before. Hyunwook responds without hesitation. He already knows him well, and doesn't shy away from calling him a villain. Juseop, however, stays composed and warns Hyunwook not to throw around the term villain so openly. He guesses Hyunwook might be an A-rank player and admits he's seen his metal manipulation skills. Still, he believes that confidence alone won't help, and reminds him that ability compatibility matters. He's convinced that those metal beads won't do anything against him, but Hyunwook is already aware of what he's up against. He knows the limits and strengths of both his own powers and Juseop's. Yang Juseop stands before Hyunwook and the other soldiers, his tentacles gripping them tightly. He remarks to Hyunwook, calling him the Great Steel Emperor, while questioning how long he plans to hide, and if he will just watch while his cannibal tree tears the soldiers apart and devours them. He wonders where all that bold talk from before has gone. As they face each other, they begin discussing compatibility, and Hyunwook admits he knows about it too before tossing out metal beads. Juseop ponders what kind of movements these are, thinking this guy was supposed to be a range-type player like him. Meanwhile, Hyunwook keeps moving forward while scattering the metal beads around the area. Juseop comments that there's no chance these attacks will work on him, and questions if Hyunwook has lost his mind for charging in like this. However, Hyunwook keeps applying the metal beads toward him without stopping. Juseop shrugs it off while insisting that Hyunwook can attack all he wants, but none of it will work. Hyunwook notes that it should be enough firewood. Juseop assumes that Hyunwook thinks he can do something if he gets close, but he clearly has no idea about the power of the cannibal tree. He thinks about how his tree will chew off Hyunwook's arms and digest them before anything else. But unexpectedly, the tree fails to digest Hyunwook's arm, and Juseop freezes, stunned to see flames appearing out of nowhere. He thinks this guy was just throwing metal beads, so where did this fire ability suddenly come from? He starts to realize he's in trouble. Now Juseop offers Hyunwook a deal while explaining that he is in the middle of a quest, and if Hyunwook lets him live, he will hand over the reward items for the unlucky event. He decides to give all his rewards to Hyunwook, while telling himself that even if Hyunwook refuses, he can clear the quest easily because of his quest buff. But Hyunwook finds him irritating while reminding him that he used the same trick in the previous life, and calls him annoying. Juseop is shocked to hear him mention the previous life. Finally, Hyunwook tells him to die. Flames start to rise all around, and soon, a notification appears letting him know that his level is allowed entry. Outside, the soldiers arrive, and Huimin mentions there's no telling what type of gate has opened inside, while urging everyone to stay sharp as all hands prepare to enter. Right after, he gets a reminder to remain alert since the area is dangerous. As the soldiers head toward the zone, they receive notice that once they step in, they can't leave unless certain conditions are met. They enter the area and quickly freeze in shock when they see a giant spider towering in front of them. At that moment, Huimin gestures for Junmo to lower his voice. Meanwhile, GYani Manhwa is already there and calls out, asking who has arrived. Huimin responds that they are the rescue team, which takes Manhwa by surprise. Huimin looks around and notes that there don't seem to be any civilian victims while wondering what happened there. Manhwa explains that it's all due to an AMT member, and because of him, everyone was evacuated. Even now, they are sticking to his orders. Huimin then checks if it was a female soldier, asking about her current location and if she is injured. But Manhwa clarifies that the female soldier is managing things at the shelter. However, the person he's referring to is Hyunwook, and they are simply following his lead. Then Junmo steps in and asks if the guy has spiky hair and sometimes a creepy smile. Manhwa confirms that's right. Junmo glances at the platoon leader and points out that it seems to be Hyunwook. Huimin turns to Junmo while telling him to stay out of it, and questioning how he managed to get involved in this situation. Junmo lowers his head and apologizes to him. Huimin turns to GYani Manhwa while pointing out that the soldier they are talking about is actually an F-ranker, while reminding him if he even knows that. Huimin mentions he will take command now since he is a C-ranker. Manhwa, however, questions how they even got inside this place since there is a restriction at level 15. He shares that he already knew Hyunwook's rank because he heard it earlier, yet he still follows Hyunwook's orders while believing he truly deserves to lead. Manhwa also mentions he is a C-ranker as well while wondering why he needs to take orders from Huimin. He also brings up that they claim to be the rescue squad, but with this unlucky event happening, he questions how they plan on rescuing anyone while asking if they even have a clear plan or an exit strategy. Huimin responds that for now, they will set up a barricade at the entrance while leaving a narrow passageway and try to hold out as long as possible. While they discuss, Seonha suddenly rushes in while letting him know that they are in big trouble. Huimin checks on her, asking if the vice platoon leader is hurt, but she freezes upon seeing the second platoon leader while questioning why he came here. He tells her he is here to rescue them, but she insists it is not the priority right now, while revealing that the civilians have found out it is a double gate. Meanwhile, the civilians begin shouting while demanding the person in charge to come out and accusing them of lying when they claimed they would survive if they just waited. They ask why the truth about the double gate was hidden from them. She explains it was to prevent chaos, but the people push back while questioning how they are supposed to trust her while saying that the guard was right after all, and claiming they are using civilians as human shields to buy time. The female soldier snaps while asking where they heard such nonsense. One of the men responds that it was the guard with a scar on his nose who told them the so-called truth. On the other side, Jusiop lies wounded on the ground while grumbling that he had fully prepared for this quest, while feeling it's unfair since the chance was so hard to get. Meanwhile, Hyunwook, clearly busy, brushes off his complaints while urging him to just hurry up and die. Jusiop curses about how these villains always seem to use the same tricks. Suddenly, a swirl appears, and he gets notified that his mana is recovering fast, along with his health. Another notification pops up while informing him that his quest has arrived. Hyunwook, thrilled to discover it is a hidden quest called Lightbearer, which promises to guide him to become the dawn of the world and the light that will lead it. Yet, as the notification asks if he wants to accept this quest, Hyunwook simply rejects it without hesitation. Hyunwook gets asked once more if he wants to take or turn down the quest. He figures that the Guardian quest sounds noble while claiming it protects humanity. Yet in the end, it's just another group with its own motives. While the reward is certain, his actions will get limited again and again. Above all, a quest stays a quest, but humans aren't that straightforward. If this mission gets twisted, a Guardian could flip into a villain any time, just like Gordon Precy, humanity's worst traitor. After all, he was once a Guardian too. So, Hyunwook mutters under his breath that he refuses this quest again. Right after, while standing still, a notice pops up that he has won the first prize in a lucky event, Akashic Armory Key number 2. It's the same item the villain Yang Jusiop was hunting down, even if it meant butchering innocent people. Since it's a main quest reward, there's no doubt it's something the villains desperately need. Because of that, he plans to keep it while swearing to ruin those villain punks in this lifetime. Meanwhile, a lady guard complains that something feels off. GYani Manhwa mentions that he's the only guard with a scar on his face. She questions him again while asking if he's sure it wasn't him. The man admits he isn't certain but still points out they hid info about the double gate. No one can guarantee they won't be used as human shields. Hyunwook senses that Yang Juseop is causing trouble to the bitter end. Then, Minhui steps up while trying to calm the people down and asking them to trust her as the captain of the AMT rescue team and hear them out. At that moment, Hyunwook also realizes that Lieutenant Major Kim Kang-seok didn't give up on Seoul Station till the last second, sending in Lieutenant Minhui exactly where she was needed. But the crowd questions her while doubting why they should trust a rescue team with only 6 people and no clear plan. Hyunwook steps forward while questioning what's going on and reminding them that if the second wave begins, they all face death. The man argues they don't trust them, which is why they're acting this way. Hyunwook counters while asking if they have any other solution since they don't trust them. He points out that the railguards have risked their lives, and that should count for something while questioning if anyone else is willing to risk everything for them. Yet, Minhui snaps at Hyunwook while scolding him for speaking to citizens like that and questioning where he was hiding until now. Hyunwook casually mentions that he just blocked the double gate. Minhui is stunned, thinking this man is lying with a straight face while claiming he blocked the double gate by himself. Hyunwook warns that the second wave is about to start and requests all citizens to hide as well as they can. Then, he calls the guards and platoon leader to follow him while telling everyone to use chairs and desks to block the entrances and find hiding spots. Meanwhile, Minhui thinks to herself about the commanding presence he's showing while leaving her with no room to intervene, wondering if this is really the Hyunwook she knows. Soon, Junmo arrives with Hyunwook's blade and the vice platoon leader's spellbook, and Hyunwook nods in thanks. He then gathers everyone while saying there's something important to share. He mentions that the first wave's spider monster wasn't in the field guide, but with his battle skin and the guard force, they managed to stop it, although it felt weak for an unlucky event monster. Manhwa agrees while noting it felt odd despite being strong. Hyunwook explains it might be because it was only the first wave, and since an unlucky event is still an event, it must come in stages. He warns that in the second wave, monsters using the spider's venom might appear. Minhui, while watching all this, wonders why even the guards and the vice platoon leader are listening so seriously to this so-called loser. Hyunwook points out that keeping this in mind, everyone needs to put on gas masks in advance. Although Seoul Station is large, if the toxic gas keeps spreading, citizens might end up getting exposed to it. Therefore, they must find a way to lure the monsters out to the outside platform, no matter what. He goes on to break down the plan. When the second wave kicks off, they need to catch the monsters' focus and guide them outside. Hyunwook takes it upon himself to handle that part. Meanwhile, the rescue team and the guards will wait outside in groups, ready to strike the monsters that get drawn out while staying behind cover where they can duck and hide if needed. Just like during the first wave, their goal is to lock down the monsters' movements and wait for the right moment. They need to remember to keep their distance, no matter what happens. Once they find a strong position to fight from, Hyunwook plans to tear off the spider's armor while opening the chance for them to finish the job. Hyunwook points out that everyone should aim all their attacks on that weak spot to bring it down. He notes this step as the most important part. For a better chance at pulling off this operation, the platoon leader and vice platoon leader need to guide them from a higher position. If the platoon leader keeps supporting him by using the warp ability, Hyunwook can pour all his mana and stamina into tearing off the spider's armor. Meanwhile, if the vice platoon leader keeps restoring the platoon leader's mana, they could continue using warp until the battle ends. Above everything else, the only person able to sense and handle the dangerous situations for each unit is the vice platoon leader, who knows raid tactics inside out, isn't it? At that moment, Manhwa acknowledges that with this strategy, they should get through without taking heavy damage. Hyunwook nods while trusting the plan, and relies on Manhwa while calling her platoon leader, or rather, rescue team captain now. He realizes that with Manhwa's warp skill, as a C ranker truly at level 15, they can clear this operation without much trouble. Soon the second wave is about to begin, and he reminds everyone to prepare themselves. However, he suddenly gets a notification that an unlucky event is now active in the area. He mutters that their plan is already set, so they have to move forward. Right after, another notice informs him that they must either survive for 6 hours or defeat the boss monster to escape. A wave of shock hits him as he learns about the boss's appearance, and disbelief runs through him while thinking this shouldn't be happening now. Then, another notification flashes while stating that the boss monster has arrived and they must defeat it. In that instant, the future shifts, and Hyunwook quickly orders everyone to run while knowing everything has now changed. As Hyunwook engages the monsters in a fierce battle, a sudden shift takes place. The boss monster makes its appearance. A wave of shock sweeps over him as he recognizes the creature. At the same moment, Manhwa tries to understand the chaos around him. He murmurs to himself while attempting to grasp control of the situation. Without wasting time, he orders the others to stay steady and stick to the raid plan while instructing them to lure the beast away from the civilians. Meanwhile, the boss monster charges at Hyunwook. He recalls from memory that this enemy wasn't supposed to arrive until the second wave. A chill of realization strikes him. His actions may have altered the timeline. As they begin clashing, the monster's strike nearly hits him, but he narrowly avoids it. This near miss fires him up. He gathers his will while knowing that failure would mean total destruction. He activates his smash skill, but it proves useless against the boss. Shocked, he attempts a metal skill combo, yet the creature deflects it effortlessly. Frustration builds up inside him. The monster had crushed a pillar in one blow, clearly outmatching normal strengthening body transformation. Suddenly, something catches his attention. The boss appears to be targeting the support pillars. That sparks an idea. Despite the risk, he steadies himself, convinced it's the only option left. From afar, Manhwa watches in disbelief. He questions what Hyunwook is thinking and calls out to him while reminding him of their strategy. But Hyunwook, bloodied yet determined, assures him through his actions that he has a plan. Manhwa's mind drifts back to a past moment. Hyunwook had once addressed him formally as TAO, Tactical Action Officer, Manhwa. He had teased Hyunwook for using his title like that while suspecting he was making an excuse. But Hyunwook had genuinely thanked him for saving his life with his warp skill. Manhwa had humbly responded while crediting his experience and his habit of memorizing every tactical manual available. He had explained how he refined those strategies over time while preparing to use his warp with precision in real situations. Snapping back to the present, Manhwa watches Hyunwook and wonders aloud what he's planning. But as he studies the movements more closely, realization strikes that Hyunwook isn't just dodging. He's guiding every attack from the boss monster toward the structural pillars. However, Manhwa knows that simply bringing down the pillars isn't enough. Then it hits him. Panic rises in his chest as he turns to Seonha while standing beside him. He pleads for her to channel all her mana into him. When she asks why, he urgently responds that he's going to open the largest warp zone he's ever attempted. While that happens, Hyunwook successfully redirects each monstrous blow toward the final pillar. Though his mana depletes rapidly, he pushes on while praying that his body won't give out. But as he nears the end, the boss strikes back hard while slamming him into the wall. Pain floods through him, yet he forces himself to rise again while activating his body transformation. Despite that, he is once again overpowered. His body broken, he lies battered against the ruins, but he knows it's complete. The structure is on the brink of collapse. He tells himself the only thing left is to keep the boss distracted long enough. He needs bait. Manhwa, on the edge, yells at Hyunwook to retreat. He warns that activating the warp will drag Hyunwook in too, but Hyunwook insists that it's now or never. Driven by Hyunwook's determination, Manhwa unleashes the warp just in time. The resulting explosion destroys the boss monster and causes massive devastation across the battlefield. Catching his breath, Hyunwook praises Manhwa while calling him a true partner, but he's on the verge of collapse. As Min-hee kneels beside his bruised body, he calls him a fool, yet it's clear there's nothing but respect in his voice. Hyun-wook recalls a conversation from his former life. He mentions that numerous comrades were lost during this operation, while making him question if he's truly worthy of leading. The girl beside him responds with frustration while calling him irritating and asking if he plans to keep wallowing in such weak thoughts. She questions who even gets to decide what someone deserves and whether he still doesn't believe in himself. Back in the current timeline, he finds himself in the middle of a fierce battle against a monster. Just then, a system alert notifies him that his mana is down to only 3%. He apologizes to everyone around him, but suddenly his mind pulls back a memory, one where that same girl told him that whenever he feels unsure, he should look into the eyes of those who trust and follow him. Taking her words to heart, he raises his gaze. Right at that moment, Min-hee and Seona arrive while rushing in to protect and pull him from danger. Moments later, an urgent notification pops up while announcing the arrival of the boss monster and marking it as a target that must be eliminated. Meanwhile, back at the base, the battalion commander receives word that every media outlet is pushing for a statement regarding the sudden appearance of the boss monster and the countermeasures being taken. At the same time, a man approaches the squad attack department head. He relays that both the director and vice president have instructed him to deliver a message that if things continue in this manner, her position as the head of the attack squads might not remain secure for long. Yuhaina complains that these so-called brothers are ambushing her like stray dogs while calling it nonsense as they tear her apart like they've been waiting for this moment. Meanwhile, the battalion commander keeps his eyes on her. She snaps at him to stop staring while reminding him she can just call him anytime if needed, and then she dials her phone. On the other end, Seona checks in while asking if he's about to die while admitting she thought he would really kick the bucket this time. Hyun-wook, caught in his thoughts, realizes that the future has shifted while leaving him unsure if the knowledge he holds now has any real value or if it's become completely useless. He wonders what step he should take next. Then, Min-hee scolds Hyun-wook while calling him arrogant and questioning who he thinks he is for acting alone. She reminds him that without her, everyone here would have been wiped out, and he knows it. She explains that tactics depend on promises, on trusting that teammates will carry out the planned actions exactly when needed, and that this trust is the core of all tactics. She tells him that acting alone for the sake of everyone was never a good move, not even close, and questions if he truly trusts his teammates at all. This moment pulls Hyun-wook back to a memory from his past, where he is reminded to believe in those trusting gazes around him. He starts reflecting deeply on trust. Then, Seona tells the platoon commander that this isn't the moment for arguments. At this point, Hyun-wook mentions that thanks to them, he thinks he now knows what he must do. The boss monster is about to jump out soon, but he has just discovered a way to handle it. Min-hee, however, senses that he's trying to charge in alone once again, and she thinks they need to stick to tactics now. She considers that if she has steel skin, they can manage better. Meanwhile, Hyun-wook mentions that they will use electricity, and everyone must cooperate fully for this tactic to work. He gathers everyone's attention and states that from this point on, the heart of the boss monster raid will be Junmo. Junmo freezes in shock upon hearing this. Hyun-wook continues while sharing that they have confirmation about the boss monster's appearance and raises concerns about what will happen to the citizens at Seoul Station. He mentions that the military and authorities need to clarify the situation with additional details. The battalion commander responds that they will conduct a briefing immediately, announcing that the secondary rescue team for this unlucky event has already been sent out. People react with shock upon hearing about the deployment of the secondary rescue team, while questioning the decision to send another low-level team when the boss monster has shown up, while wondering if deploying personnel at level 15 or lower is truly their plan to defeat the boss monster. Hyun-wook now stands side by side with Seonha while facing off against the monster as they push to bring it down. Meanwhile, the head of the guard team instructs the guards to release the water ball. The guards begin pouring water while the amplification rune activates while spreading energy across the field. Seeing the timing is right, Hyun-wook instructs Junmo to launch a lightning attack, and Junmo quickly follows through while unleashing the strike against the monster. Hyun-wook then yells out for everyone to hold on until the large frost rune is ready to fire. Meanwhile, people around start raising their voices toward the battalion commander, while questioning if sending in low-level personnel is truly their plan to defeat the boss monster, and asking if they aren't concerned about needless casualties piling up. In response, the battalion commander explains that this time, the secondary rescue team includes an S-rank player without any level restrictions. This player is Han Taeson, known as the Fist King. As Han Taeson arrives on the scene, he approaches Hyun-wook while acknowledging the effort he's put in, and tells him to step back now, while saying that this big brother will take over from here. He adds that the rest of them should clear out of the way. At that moment, Hyun-wook realizes that, finally, after taking his time, Han Taeson has shown up. Han Taeson then turns to Hyun-wook while mentioning that, just so he knows, he doesn't like sharing the same table, and warns that if he catches Hyun-wook drooling over his fight, he won't hesitate to deal with him. Taeson steps in front of the boss monster and mentions that if it can battle, then he can too. Everyone around is stunned as he swings at the creature. Yet, he soon notices there isn't even a single mark on its body, and he remarks that it's stronger than he expected while making him feel unnecessarily competitive. After that, he moves closer to the monster again, while commenting that it's just making things worse for itself. The monster also starts attacking him while the soldiers remain in the area while keeping watch. Meanwhile, Hyun-wook shows up along with Seonha. She remarks that since he kept insisting, she's filling him with some mana and checks if he's alright now while reminding him that his treatment matters more. Hyun-wook responds that he's okay while telling her not to stress over him and adding that he won't be using his body anyway. Just then, one of the nearby soldiers questions if he's scared or if he's about to use it now. Taesun once again charges at the boss monster and lands another heavy strike. Hyun-wook steps in too while using his metal smash skill as he moves forward. Taesan glances at him and questions who he is while wondering if he has a death wish and reminding him not to drool on his table. Hyun-wook responds while pointing out that even for an S-ranker, he's acting a bit shady with his deals. Taesan asks what he just called him, and Hyun-wook clarifies that he's the one who interrupted their raid. Taesan argues while questioning if they think they could have defeated it without him, while wondering who this arrogant lunatic is and how he dares to play tricks. But Hyun-wook snaps back while mentioning that they are the ones who struggle until the fatal crisis passes, and Taesan just swoops in last minute while pretending to be the hero. Hyun-wook gets really angry at him. Soon Taesan goes after the boss monster to finish it off, but Hyun-wook also tries to take it down at the same time. Then, they receive a notification that the boss monster has been defeated and the area is now free of all restrictions. Afterwards, people are informed that the boss monster was defeated in less than 5 minutes after Han Taesan entered. The event dome quietly disappears as the quest completes while revealing the dreadful state of Seoul Station, where it's clear they can't promise the citizens' survival. Later, the survivors start coming out. At that moment, a girl sees her mother and runs towards her while checking if she's okay or hurt anywhere. Her mother hugs her tightly and tells her she's okay while apologizing for making her worry, while the girl cries in her embrace. Then, all of a sudden, a breaking news alert shows up while announcing that something unbelievable has happened. A miracle. Somehow everyone inside Seoul Station has made it out alive. Right after that, Taesun receives a notification that he's the one who brought down the boss monster, the venomous ironclad spider, while meaning he managed to survive the unlucky event. Soon after, he also gets a message congratulating him while letting him know that he'll be receiving a lucky reward for his help in the boss monster's defeat. But unexpectedly, they all become aware that an unknown energy is starting to flow into the Cloud Blade. At the same time, Hyun-wook also gets informed that he's earned a lucky reward for bringing down the boss monster. His prize turns out to be Mananan MacLear's secret armor. As Hyun-wook processes everything, he thinks to himself that this is how he protected Seoul Station and still ended up gaining what he wanted. Right after, Taesun confronts him while demanding an explanation and wanting to know what's going on with his reward. In response, Hyun-wook reminds him that they're the ones who blocked the second wave and finished off the boss. He points out that Taesan should actually be grateful for getting second rank even though he barged in at the last moment, and no matter how much he argues, it won't change the facts. But Taesun doesn't back down and counters sharply while questioning if he needs to teach him how the system works again. He reminds that slaying the boss monster alone counts for 7% of the contribution towards the event reward. That means, no matter what kind of efforts they pulled off before, his input is still way higher. Then he brings up the comment about trade ethics while explaining that he was in the middle of 6 months of closed training when he had to rush into this mess. So to even things out, he expects at least a hero-grade item. Finally, he demands to know how they're planning to make up for it. Hyun-wook figures he's just messing around while thinking it's funny to bicker about time and payment right in front of him, who's had to head back into the army doing all this pointless and tiring work. Then Taesan questions if he even realizes whose time he's been wasting while reminding him that he is Han Taesan. He warns him to stay in line while letting him know that all his talk about solo training or whatever he contributed doesn't change anything. Because honestly, if Taesan ever had to be paid back fairly for all the hours he spent fighting, no prize would ever be enough. Frustration builds in Taesan as he steps toward him. At that moment, Kim Kang-suk and Yoo Hae-na arrive, both stopping in shock when they see them. Kang-suk then remarks that the gate is closed and wonders what's going on here. Hyun-wook realizes they've shown up at the perfect timing. He nods toward Taesan while acknowledging him with a compliment and telling him it's been an honor meeting him too. Taesan is taken aback. Hyun-wook then mentions he's heading off now. Kang-suk checks in while asking if he's fine, and Hyun-wook responds that he's alright. But suddenly Taesan yells for him to get back here immediately. Yoo Hae-na steps in, telling Taesan to cut it out. She admits she has no idea what's happening here, but she warns him that the entire country is watching right now. If he causes trouble here, not even the Blue Flower Guild could fully cover it up. Meanwhile, the soldiers clear the path while announcing the arrival of the Brigadier General as a teleport gate opens. Choi Jung-chul appears while commenting on how rare it is to see Taesan still around, noting even the Blue Flower Guild Master's daughter is present, and asks if there's any issue here. Yu-haina laughs it off while brushing aside the idea of any problem since the gate has closed now. Youngchul remarks that if it's the Blue Flower Guild, there surely can't be any trouble, which makes her find him to be a cunning old man. She then turns to Taesan and brings up the state of Seoul Station, while pointing out that the condition was for him to clear the gate without causing a second wave of damage. According to her, a gate of this level should have been cleared without any destruction. Taesan shrugs it off while replying that he neither wrecked Seoul Station nor ranked first in the raid. She pauses, confused while asking what he means by not ranking first. He insists that he fulfilled all her conditions, so she needs to keep her end of the deal. This leaves her puzzled while thinking how it's possible that an S-ranker didn't come first in a simple level 15 unlucky event. She wonders who on earth managed to take the top spot. Meanwhile, Hyunwook is talking with Youngchul, who questions how it even adds up. His military files state he can control up to 300 grams, but the report he just received suggests Hyunwook can handle way beyond that. At that moment, Yu-haina suddenly figures it out that Hyunwook is the one who actually secured the first rank. Then Youngchul turns to him, pointing out that unless the data is incorrect, he's still listed as an F-ranker. He finds the situation rather fascinating and mentions that he'd like to take a stroll and get a full update directly from him. Meanwhile, Haina starts feeling a pounding headache as things keep unfolding in completely unexpected ways right before her eyes. As Hyunwook begins walking alongside the Brigadier General, he tells himself to stay extra alert. After all, Youngchul isn't someone who can be taken lightly. His abilities have earned him the nickname of a tactical nuclear weapon. But beyond just power, the man is incredibly complex. He's the very individual the necromancer feared most, and someone who had already survived multiple attempts on his life. Soon, Youngchul calls Hyunwook and requests a full account of the earlier events. Hyunwook immediately realizes what's going on. As he suspected, the Brigadier General is trying to confirm the strange difference between his current performance and what's listed in his official records. He responds by explaining that just recently, after taking down his second elite monster, his abilities had spiked out of nowhere. He received an achievement message titled Dunce's Rebellion. His mana control shot up from just 300 grams to nearly 17 kilograms, and he also picked up a few new skills along the way. Youngchul nods and brings up how rare achievement systems are just as rare as quests. This confirms to Hyunwook what he already fears. The world must not yet know that F-rankers can actually grow stronger. That secret needs to be kept safe for now. Then Youngchul agrees that if it's tied to an achievement, it's at least within the realm of possibility. Still, Hyunwook gets a strange, uneasy feeling deep down. After a pause, Youngchul adds that calling him an F-ranker now doesn't really fit anymore. In terms of real combat power, he's likely at least C rank or maybe even higher. That completely stuns Hyunwook. A thought flashes through his mind that does he want to scout him too? Then, casually but clearly impressed, Youngchul compliments Hyunwook's performance while saying he definitely deserves a reward for his efforts. He offers to grant him something, perhaps a magic item or a high-grade armor. He assures him that whatever it is, he'll try to provide it. Hyunwook, after a moment of hesitation, admits there is one weapon he's been eyeing, but he doubts even a Brigadier General could just hand it over that easily. That catches Youngchul off guard. Surprised, he asks what item he's talking about. Then, Hyunwook calmly reveals it. It's one of Youngchul's own most valued possessions, the hero rank Fail Not. The Brigadier General lets out a hearty laugh while remarking that Hyunwook really has nerves of steel and mentions they should talk again once he earns another badge here. He notes that Hyunwook gets a special promotion for being such a lively person. Hyunwook, while seeing how quickly he shifts the topic, thinks to himself that it's just like him, but at least it's a relief since it buys him some more time to stay hidden. A few days later, at the 3rd AMT Brigade's 1st Battalion, Hyunwook spends time there while working through the secret armor he recently obtained. He reflects that hero rank gear truly takes effort to absorb fully. During this, Junmo arrives and questions him about training, while Choi Min-jae also chimes in while mentioning that they'd prefer to do anything other than another round of PT. Hyunwook finds them bothersome and points out that he's supposed to be a patient right now. However, they insist that he can simply lead from the front while they stick right behind him. In that moment, Hyunwook thinks about how, regardless of what happened during these recent events, what truly matters is the trust they build together. Soon after, An Min-tae approaches, salutes, and reports that after being cleared to leave the Military General Hospital, he's back and ready to rejoin the support squad. Hyunwook thinks about how future reward items will always be important, but he's beginning to realize there are other things around him that matter even more. He thanks Min-tae for coming back safely, and then moves forward to give him a hug. Min-tae, while looking confused, asks why he's being thanked, and Hyunwook responds that it's for showing up right on time for training. As he thinks over it, Hyunwook realizes that while he's living this life with these people, it might not be so bad to let them watch his back for once. With that thought, he turns to the group and signals that it's time to move while telling everyone that training is about to begin. A phenomenon where countless gates violently emerge inside a certain zone is known as a wave. Before long, a wave is set to sweep over Seoul while twisting the city into a nightmare, and the only one aware of this future is Hyunwook. He wonders if he can block the wave alone, if anyone could survive in the chaos. But now, he realizes clearly that he can't manage this by himself. Meanwhile, Junmo mentions that C and lower rankers are barred from using the training center, and folks like them can't train there. But Hyunwook reminds them that they were the ones craving real training. Junmo questions how they can start with something like this, while Hyunwook tells them that since they cleared the unlucky event, there's no reason to hesitate. All of them, except Junmo, even leveled up this time, didn't they? Junmo insists they were just backups back then, and now they need to handle things themselves. Hyunwook responds that if that's the case, then he will act as their backup. Junmo wonders if he truly means it. Hyunwook urges everyone to move quickly, but then the soldiers pause while pleading for help. Hyunwook informs them that the attribute training is starting now. Nearby, two girls notice and think that this is the corporal uncle, the F-rank uncle who carried the blockade mission and the unlucky event. One thinks she imagined he would look more rugged, but that's not how he appears at all. Hyunwook thinks to himself that these kids should find this encouraging, though he wonders why his ears feel so itchy. Later, Seo Yuna instructs the soldier to buy the same number as the workers sent to each company, and they follow her command. She then contacts Hyunwook and mentions that it should be time for personal training. He salutes her and mentions that he came to the PX to get energy supplements for his teammates who are in training. Then, he notices Sanjok and feels irritated while suspecting that he is about to start again. After that, a girl approaches Hyunwook and notes that she heard he earned the Dunce's Rebellion achievement, and Hyunwook admits it. After that, Seo Yunha mentions that the report about his unusual accomplishment sounds convincing. However, she suspects there is something more that he keeps under wraps. Hyunwook wonders aloud about what he could possibly be keeping hidden. She remarks that he moves at odd moments, almost like he already knows what's coming. It feels as if he has information that others don't, or perhaps another purpose in mind. Hyunwook responds that he doesn't quite understand what she means by that. Yet inside, he questions if she truly knows something for her to bring this up now. Still, he decides he won't share anything with her. Meanwhile, Sanjok, while standing close by, explains to Sehee that he hasn't mentioned anything while claiming he said it to someone else instead. Just then, an announcement echoes from the admin room while calling out for Corporal Hyunwook to report immediately. The voice repeats while requesting Corporal Hyunwook to head to the battalion commander's office at once. The broadcast ends while letting Hyunwook know that the battalion commander has summoned him. Meanwhile, Seo Yuna feels annoyed at the timing. She reminds him not to forget while mentioning she isn't sure what he's aiming for, but she keeps an eye on him while telling him to leave now. He listens to her order and responds with a wish for her to have a good day. Stepping out, he feels relieved, thinking he should avoid that stubborn Seo Yuna for a while. Yet, he wonders what this call could be about, since the promotion ceremony is still a few days away. Later, near the battalion commander's office, Hyunwook hears someone inside arguing that this can't be called a test, claiming that sending them there would get all their men killed. Then he knocks on the door. A voice tells him to enter. He steps in, salutes, and states that he has arrived while addressing Brigadier General Jung Cheol. The general acknowledges him while mentioning that Kang Sok contacted him, but he cuts him off while mentioning he will explain it himself. A few days earlier, a red gate appeared in the Shinrim area, with the Blue Flower Guild securing raid rights for it. The general points out the need to get a grip while questioning why they are hesitating when they belong to the same guild. He then shares a story where a soldier from the Blue Flower Guild claims everyone has lost their minds and gone insane, with the Blue Flower's third raid squad confirmed to be wiped out today. The gate has now been marked as Trouble Rank 3. Hyunwook reflects that he doesn't recall such an incident happening. The general then explains that with an entry cap of level 18 or below and a limit of 30 players, the area is known to be a zombie dungeon, where one cannot exit until the raid is cleared. Hearing the word zombie, Hyunwook thinks about whether it could be the necromancer, the commander of the dead army. The brigadier general continues while mentioning that the arrogant Blue Flower Guild sacrificed a group of promising rookies and still failed the raid. Technically, dungeon raiding is the guild's business, so the troops do not have to step in. However, the general believes Hyunwook is the right person to handle this mission. At that moment, Jung Cheol turns to Hyunwook and inquires if he can handle it. Instantly, Hyunwook understands that this event never occurred in his previous life. Moreover, while considering it involves zombies, it might connect to the necromancer. He feels that he must be the one to clear this raid. With that in mind, he agrees to take on the Red Gate. Jung Cheol internally notes that, as expected, this guy truly has nerve. However, Hyunwook points out that before heading in, it's smart to secure every possible advantage. He admits that tackling the Red Gate raid with his current gear won't be feasible. Now, he brings up the failnaught he mentioned previously, while reminding the Brigadier General that if it is handed over, he will ensure the raid's success. Even though the weapon holds outstanding precision and can nullify magic, it's challenging to recover and is typically a one-time use weapon. Because of this, even in Jung Cheol's possession, it remains a precious tool reserved for desperate moments. Yet, in Hyunwook's hands, with his ability to manipulate metal, it transforms into something entirely different. Youngchul acknowledges that this makes it a transaction rather than a favor, while warning that Hyunwook will carry the full consequences if things go wrong. Calmly, Hyunwook notes that high-stake risks often come with heavy rewards in the end. Normally, senior officers lead dungeon raids, but despite that, the brigadier is putting a regular soldier like Hyunwook in charge. Hyunwook realizes this likely has to do with the general's quiet competition with the Blue Flower Guildmaster Yoo Jae-hyuk. If the mission turns out well, it'll mark a significant win for an ordinary soldier over an elite from Blue Flower. On the other hand, if it fails, they can still claim they were only there as support, so the responsibility won't fall entirely on them. That way, the image of AMT being ineffective can be pushed aside, and Hyunwook can claim a mental win against Blue Flower. Shortly after, the brigadier informs him that he'll be given the fail knot immediately. At that moment, Hyunwook comes to understand that regardless of what happens, the brigadier has placed himself in a position where he gains something either way. As things move forward, the brigadier lets him know that since he'll be too caught up in the raid, his promotion to sergeant will be handled afterward. Frustrated, Hyunwook thinks he has no intention of being used so easily. He then reminds the brigadier that the fail knot was already promised as a reward earlier, so if he completes this mission successfully, he wants an extra reward in return. The brigadier nods and assures him that he'll consider it, as long as the raid is successful. With that, Hyunwook gives his thanks and promises to do everything possible to make sure the mission doesn't fail. Later, when he arrives at the gathering point, one of the soldiers comments that he's a little late while Junmo adds that the C-rank training area isn't anything special. Confidence seems high among the troops, but without warning, Hyunwook instructs them all to gear up. The group seems confused at first. Then he calls his support team and informs them that they're heading out for their first ever independent operation. This news surprises everyone, especially since none of them ever expected or even wished for a solo mission. 2 days later, Hyunwook informs the other soldiers that since they're entering a zombie-type dungeon, they'll be using bullets charged with holy energy. He warns them that these rounds have more kickback than standard ones, so they should handle them carefully. This isn't a simulation anymore, so he reminds everyone to stay sharp. The team quietly receives his instructions, fully understanding the seriousness. One soldier then checks if Hyunwook has brought the fail knot. He confirms with a nod and takes a moment to glance at the weapon. Without delay, he signals the raid squad to dismount. All members step out of the vehicle together. At that time, they're stationed at the Silimdong Red Gate, near the Blue Flower Guild's base camp. A leader from the guild soon appears and informs Hyunwook that he's expected to attend the operation briefing before entering. Hyunwook turns to Junmo, asking him to oversee the team for the time being. Junmo acknowledges the task, and then Junmo quietly tells An Minte that it's clear the Blue Flower members aren't too thrilled to have them there. Meanwhile, at another part of the camp, a group of Blue Flower Guild soldiers are talking among themselves. One soldier points out that AMT's team is just a backup squad made up of regular soldiers. Their own support unit already feels like the lowest tier, so having to coordinate with AMT feels like too much of a liability. They begin murmuring concerns about something called Operation Retrieval, while worrying that AMT might catch on to the plan. Another soldier quickly hushes the conversation while warning that someone might overhear them. The first one apologizes for speaking too openly. Nearby, Hyunwook picks up on the phrase Operation Retrieval and quietly wonders what they're referring to. As the Blue Flower soldiers continue chatting, one mentions that they plan to abandon AMT as soon as they step inside the gate and continue the raid on their own. Someone argues that this will leave AMT in serious danger, but the other soldier brushes it off while saying that every raid puts lives at risk and each person has to prioritize their own survival. Later, Hyunwook steps into the meeting room where a woman is already waiting. He questions her about the scheduled meeting. She responds casually while mentioning she had a feeling he would show up. She also brings up how he didn't hide the fact that he was an F rank during their last encounter and offers him her business card. As she speaks, Hyunwook realizes that not recognizing his low rank and then handing him her card must have left her feeling awkward. She moves the conversation forward while brushing aside the past and focusing on the upcoming raid. She reminds him that his team is only playing a backup role. According to her, once they enter the gate, AMT should stay out of the way and avoid interfering with Blue Flower Guild's movements. She mentions she called him just to make that clear. Internally, Hyunwook thinks this must be the reason Blue Flower agreed to bring in regular soldiers for support to sideline them completely. But he has no intention of staying quiet and following orders blindly. Calmly but firmly, he lets her know that his team has just as much right to be part of the raid as Blue Flower does. In response, she questions him mockingly while asking if he plans to take on the boss monster. She admits that he might have the ability and courage, but doubts his decision. Before she can go on, Hyunwook cuts her off and challenges her while asking why they shouldn't fight the boss monster. He wonders if she's afraid they might actually win. She laughs loudly, clearly amused, and mocks him further while bringing up the Soul Station incident and implying that it was nothing but luck. But Hyunwook disagrees and he insists that success had nothing to do with luck. Her tone sharpens as she accuses him of having a death wish. Then, almost tauntingly, she dares him to enter before they do. But suddenly, she changes her mind and tells him he can't go first. She explains that 3 of the current top 100 players are participating in this raid. In her view, his squad should stay behind and not become a nuisance. At that moment, Hyunwook starts wondering if the woman is actually GYani, as she isn't reacting to any provocation. The mention of Operation Retrieval still lingers in his mind, and he realizes there's something more going on, something he hasn't figured out yet. Curious, he addresses her by her former name, but she calmly introduces herself as Catherine. Not backing down, Hyunwook then challenges her with a wager. He proposes that if his team defeats the boss monster before Blue Flower does, she'll owe him something of his choosing. Catherine, however, warns him that he probably doesn't fully understand the weight of making a bet with her. She then raises the stakes that if the opposite happens, he must offer his life to her. Without hesitation, Hyunwook agrees. Deep inside, he thinks that whatever secrets lie hidden within the gate, he'll uncover them and take whatever is being kept away. Afterward, Catherine turns to her guild and gives the order for Blue Flower to head in first. She tells them to prepare, raise their shields, and get moving before AMT catches up. She urges her squad to enter quickly, as the AMT raid unit is set to move in 3 minutes. Meanwhile, over in the AMT formation, Junmo checks on An Min-tae and asks if he's feeling uneasy. An calmly replies that he's doing just fine. Then, Hyunwook gathers the team and reminds them to stay focused and perform just like they did during their drills. He tells them to control their breathing and be steady. The squad silently obeys and prepares as one. Shortly after, they enter the dungeon. Inside, chaos unfolds quickly. The leader of the Blue Flower troop is the first to fall, crushed brutally by a monster. One after another, their members are overwhelmed and wiped out by the creatures. On the other side, the AMT squad stands firm, as the boss monster, the Zombie King, suddenly emerges. It appears directly in front of the AMT troop. Without delay, Hyunwook instructs the AMT raid squad to shoot at the creature. However, in that instant, he senses something is off. There seems to be a barrier. He quickly tells Choi Taeyong to open fire, yet his mind briefly drifts back to a previous talk they had shared. Back then, Choi had raised a concern, wondering whether their drill training was even effective when modern weapons barely harm monsters and lack the destructive force of high-ranking players. At the time, Hyunwook had acknowledged his point. He had responded that, indeed, they wouldn't be able to inflict any serious damage. Their bullets were almost like rubber in comparison. Still, the purpose behind using rifles in this operation wasn't to kill, it was for the sound. Zombies, although their senses had decayed, still reacted strongly to noise. So while the firearms couldn't take them down, the loud shots could confuse and scatter them while dulling their perception and allowing the squad to maneuver. But right after, one of the soldiers had voiced another worry. What if the zombies inside this dungeon retained other sharp senses as well? That thought now echoes in Hyunwook's mind as he watches the Zombie King. In that situation, their odds of completing the raid grow slimmer, since most of the squad might end up turning into zombies. While this earlier conversation lingers in his mind, Hyunwook yells out to Choi Taeyong to move into position and begin firing. At the same time, he instructs An Min-tae to shoot as well. Suddenly, a loud explosion erupts, and without warning, a wave of zombies begins rushing toward the soldiers. Quickly adapting, Hyunwook directs Choi Min-jae, Junmo Sungmo, and Kim Kyungmin to swap their magazines. They swiftly reload, and then Hyunwook resumes shooting without pause, his movements precise and relentless. Observing his outstanding combat skills, Kim Kyungjin starts to believe that Hyunwook must be using a rare grade item. The moment he activates it, all the surrounding zombies disappear instantly while leaving even the Zombie King stunned by what just happened. With the area now cleared, the soldiers finally get a chance to breathe. They rest off to the side, their legs aching and exhaustion visible on their faces. As they catch their breath, they quietly talk among themselves while feeling that, at least for now, the crisis has passed. At first, Hyunwook believes they've avoided danger just as planned, but even so, something still doesn't feel right. The number of zombies they faced was far less than what he had anticipated. On top of that, he notices something strange that the boss monster's name appears glitched in the notification window. Despite his unease, he instructs the soldiers to stay alert while reminding them that the gate hasn't been cleared completely yet. Urging them to keep moving, he adds that they should leave the area as soon as possible. As the team pushes forward, a vampire silently observes them from high above, while noting with interest that these intruders seem different from the usual ones. Meanwhile, Hyunwook begins to feel increasingly unsettled. He realizes that there's nothing surrounding the dungeon, no structures, no enemies, not even a trace of life. The area is eerily empty. He reflects that despite taking part in countless raids, he's never seen a place quite like this. Suddenly, from about 20 meters behind him, he picks up on movement, a foreign metallic object shifting. As he approaches, prepared to strike, a voice pleads for mercy, revealing that he's human. The figure explains he had been hiding because he mistook them for zombies. He then introduces himself as Kim Taesop, a survivor from the 3rd Raid Squad. The name catches Hyunwook off guard while making him pause in surprise. A question immediately crosses his mind that why is this man all alone? The young man, clearly shaken, struggles to speak at first. Finally, he manages to ask if they have any water or food, his voice faint and tired. Elsewhere, inside the temporary ops room of the Blue Flower Guild, one of the guild members informs their raid leader about a recent development. He mentions that the Gugwang group has just sent a classified cooperation letter to all the top guilds. According to him, regular soldiers were dispatched for the current raid. He goes on to mention that any player who successfully recovers the chairman's grandson's body, along with the rare Grade Spear of Achilles during the second joint raid, will receive a reward of 80 billion. Along with that, the Players Guild will also get a large sponsorship from the Blue Flower Guild. Meanwhile, back on the field, Kim Tae-seop reveals to Hyun-wook that their original mission was to retrieve the spear. However, during the first attempt at the gate, the chairman's second grandson, Gu Dong-hoon, had failed while carrying the Spear of Achilles, which is known as a powerful symbol of the Gugwang group. This finally helps Hyun-wook piece everything together. He now understands why the renowned Yu Haina had been acting so cautious because the legendary Spear of Achilles is involved. It also becomes clear why the other guilds had shown such aggression during the talks about making it a joint raid. As he notices An Mintae gently patting his head, Hyun-wook asks him what's wrong, but Mintae brushes it off while saying it's nothing, though something still feels off. Far in the distance, the vampire keeps observing. Amused, he tries to make sense of the situation while thinking that this time might turn out to be entertaining. Since the others seem to be simply chatting, he decides he might need to create the excitement himself. Just then, Hyun-wook suddenly detects multiple unknown metals rushing in their direction, at least 120 of them. He stiffens in alarm while realizing the number keeps rising, and he realizes that it could turn into something dangerous. Hyun-wook senses something is coming, and they don't have much time left. He calls the squad to attention while declaring firmly that they'll proceed with Plan C. He then turns to An Mintae and Choi Min-jae while telling them to ready the equipment and start potion doping. The soldiers immediately obey, each one replying with crisp acknowledgement. They begin consuming mana stars and HP stars, quickly restoring their energy in preparation for battle. Just then, Kim Tae-seop from the Blue Flower Guild troop stumbles in and notices what's happening. He looks confused while asking what's going on. However, Hyun-wook pays him no mind, already shouting toward Junmo that he knows what his role is. Junmo hears him and affirms that he fully understands. Kim Tae-seop, clearly unsettled by being ignored, raises his voice again. He insists that someone needs to tell him what Plan C is. In his view, he should be informed like everyone else. At this, Hyun-wook finally responds. He explains plainly that they are going to run. He warns the man to stay right behind them, otherwise he'll end up turning into a zombie. Still, Kim Tae-seop doesn't quite follow. He starts to speak again, but just then, a sudden blast echoes from behind. He turns around and freezes. Without wasting a second, he calls out for the AMT raid squad to withdraw from the current zone. From the shadows, the vampire watches the entire scene unfold. He observes with interest and muses that their so-called plan, while sacrificing one of their own as bait, feels far too simplistic. Still, he mutters that the bait would be of no use if he himself kills it in an instant. On the front line, Hyun-wook continues fighting with everything he has. Kim Tae-seop gasps while realizing that Plan C may have just been a plan to abandon Hyun-wook entirely and flee. It seems too reckless. Yet Junmo responds with confidence while explaining that Corporal Hyun-wook had crafted this strategy himself, and he is not the type to fail or act without reason. As the team flees from the approaching metal storm, they are forced to dodge a new wave of enemies, zombies, seething with rage while descending upon them. Their snarls fill the air, louder and wilder with every step. However, Hyun-wook doesn't retreat. He yells to smash and launches a fierce attack. His power explodes outward while striking the zombies hard. Many of them collapse on the spot while unmoving. The vampire watches amused. He notices the iron beads Hyun-wook used, small but glowing with divine power. He now understands that Hyun-wook had been positioned as bait for a very specific reason. Still, he knows the noise from those divine beads will soon draw even more zombies, and those will be even harder to control. Suddenly, the largest zombie makes its appearance. Its size towers above the others, and its fury is unmatched. It lets out a monstrous roar while shaking the dungeon. Hyun-wook narrows his eyes. Among the incoming zombies, he senses something unusual, a type of metal unlike any other, something of a far higher grade. He realizes in that moment that this might not be a creature at all. It might be a person. He starts thinking that whoever this is, he can't possibly be just another villain. Part of him wonders if it's someone he already knows. His gaze shifts instinctively to the vampire. While he's lost in thought, two flying zombies shoot toward him. He reacts instantly while slashing through them with a precise combo. His attacks are sharp and relentless. Still, more zombies keep coming. He knows he has to keep pushing. The vampire, while watching from afar, starts to doubt his earlier expectations. He reflects that maybe he had expected too much from this fight. Yet the divine-infused iron beads were no afterthought Hyunwook had prepared carefully. Still, the vampire notices Hyunwook's energy fading. He also sees that the shards of the iron beads are now scattered, likely to be used again. Hyunwook gathers his last reserve of strength and unleashes a skill. Steel Rain, Free Fall. Metal shards rain down from above while tearing through the zombie horde. Explosions thunder around them. The massive zombie cries out, and as the blast intensifies, a brilliant light bursts outward. One of the men watching all this in disbelief stammers out his thoughts. He recalls that the plan had been to use one man as bait and run. It no longer makes sense. Another soldier quickly corrects him while pointing out that this was never about abandoning anyone. From the beginning, it had been a deception operation to lure the zombies away from Corporal Hyunwook. They had all been running while talking, all to serve the illusion. The vampire watches the plan unfold with growing interest. A realization hits him that Hyunwook had never been the bait at all. This was a full raid strategy, designed from the start. He bursts into laughter while admitting to himself that he never imagined these soldiers would be this entertaining. Hyunwook catches the vampire laughing and grows uneasy. Something feels off. He starts thinking carefully. The vampire is laughing, but why? What's his true motive for entering the raid gate? And more than anything, Hyunwook realizes that the man blends in too well with the zombies. A deeper suspicion forms inside him. He starts to believe that he might know this man from somewhere. The vampire's grin widens. He declares to himself that now he wants to taste Hyunwook's blood. He plans to soak his spear in it. Then with a loud crash, he slams his sword into the ground. Hyunwook can no longer hold back. Fury blazing in his eyes, he asks only once if the man is a necromancer. The vampire's eyes flicker with surprise. The question catches him off guard. He grows still, shaken that Hyunwook could even know about necromancers. This unexpected reaction makes Hyunwook hesitate. He begins to wonder if he had been wrong all along. Maybe this man isn't the necromancer after all. The vampire steps forward, voice cold and sharp. He warns that if Hyunwook wants a peaceful death, he'd better speak clearly, because now he wants to know how Hyunwook knows about necromancers. He demands to know who Hyunwook really is. Without hesitation, he lunges forward while drawing his sword to strike. He blocks the strike while saving himself from a fatal blow. He mentally notes that if it hadn't been for the fusion of Mananan MacLear's secret armor with his steel body, his arm would have been sliced clean off. Realizing he has to act fast, he activates a skill and launches an attack. Blades spin through the air while flying towards the vampire, yet suddenly a shield forms in front of the vampire while protecting him completely. The sight stuns Hyunwook. The vampire has successfully saved himself, but what shocks Hyunwook even more is how effortlessly he did it. At that moment, Hyunwook thinks about the attack pattern. It's far beyond what level 18 is supposed to handle. He becomes more and more certain this guy has already surpassed the Red Gate's restrictions. As they continue to face each other, Hyunwook demands to know how he even got inside. Meanwhile, the vampire's hand begins to burn. Shards of divine bead embedded by Hyunwook now sear his flesh. Observing closely, Hyunwook notes the vampire's reaction. That confirms it. Only beings harmed by divine power react that way. He realizes what he's dealing with. A player devouring player. A vampire from the evil tribe that destroyed the AMT. Evidently, his words strike a nerve. The vampire explodes in fury while calling Hyunwook a master at provoking people. He yanks the burning shards from his skin, which begins to regenerate quickly. Then, without giving Hyunwook a chance to respond, he threatens to chop off a limb or two if that's what it takes to make him talk. Hyunwook, while trying to stay calm, focuses on the weapon in the vampire's hand. It's the Spear of Achilles, the very one the Gugwang group is searching for. He concludes that its true powers must have awakened. If that's the case, then even with his steel body and secret armor, he won't survive a hit. He knows the potion effect will only last a little over 2 minutes. He has to end this before then. As he thinks this through, the vampire narrows his gaze and declares he'll break him open if necessary. He launches into the air again while aiming his next attack. Both of them clash in mid-combat. Hyunwook counters with metal control, but the attack doesn't land. The vampire weaves through it and mocks him for using the same tricks. Feeling frustrated, Hyunwook watches his opponent block every long-distance attempt. It becomes clear that he won't be able to land any bead shard hits, and close combat is too risky with that spear. So, he begins to run while analyzing his options. While running, he reflects that he's left with no other choice. He has to play his last card earlier than expected. High above, the vampire rages. He screams while demanding how Hyunwook dares to even utter that name, someone he shouldn't know. In response, Hyunwook keeps sprinting while accepting that it's time. He answers indirectly while introducing himself as a soldier. He wonders aloud whether the vampire even served while suspecting he never joined the military. The vampire snaps back in confusion while demanding answers and calling Hyunwook ridiculous. But Hyunwook presses further. He states his assumption was right. The vampire didn't serve in the military at all. Meanwhile, in another corner of the battlefield, chaos continues. Junmo prepares to activate something when an AMT raid soldier rushes in and stops him while urging him not to waste the chance. With the boss monster nowhere to be seen, even the raid squad wouldn't survive against the remaining zombies. Another soldier remarks grimly that Hyunwook is likely already dead. They need to hide, but Junmo refuses to believe it. He responds with conviction. Corporal Hyunwook isn't someone who would fall so easily. One of the soldiers demands to know how he can be so sure. Junmo answers that they haven't received the signal yet. Confused, the soldier presses for clarification, just as another soldier arrives and calls out Junmo's name. Junmo responds quickly, and the new arrival tells him to strap a claymore mine to his back before leaving the zone. Junmo checks that is it the KM-18A1? The soldier confirms. If it explodes, it means he used his last resort. When that happens, Junmo must ensure the squad hides immediately. At the same time, Hyunwook's voice roars across the battlefield. He shouts that it's time and yells, "Blast!" A massive explosion follows. Metal shards fly everywhere while burning the vampire. Hyunwook hides for safety, but when he peeks out he sees the vampire, burned but still alive. The vampire howls in rage while demanding how Hyunwook dares to attack someone who was chosen, someone bonded to the spear. He announces that he cannot be killed so easily. However, Hyunwook sees his chance. He leaps back into action and launches another attack while using all of his power. The vampire, overwhelmed, takes several hits. He's shocked. The strikes come so fast he can't even follow them. As he struggles, the vampire mutters in disbelief. The claymore wasn't meant to kill him, and it was only a distraction. Hyunwook's true trump card was something else entirely. Then with a smirk, he reveals his hidden weapon that is an arrow. Hyunwook hears him but doesn't flinch. He responds that the arrow is infused with his own power, and it won't be removed so easily. But he reassures the vampire that he won't die just yet. Now it's Hyunwook's turn to ask the questions. Meanwhile, a member of the Blue Flower Guild, who's been teaming up with AMT instead of sticking with his own group, glances at Junmo and points out that the explosion looks exactly like the signal they had just discussed. Junmo nods in confirmation. The Blue Flower Guild member shrugs and mentions that he already said anyone alone out here would have ended up dead in the worst way. He advises that if they've got combat rations, they should just lie low and wait for the rear squad to arrive, while assuring them that they'll survive that way. This comment clearly irritates Junmo. With frustration, he glares at the man. The Blue Flower member, now nervous, asks what the problem is. Junmo sternly responds that the signal might mean one of their own could be dead, and questions how he could even think about joking right now. The man fumbles while saying it's unfortunate, but they still have to survive somehow. He then turns to the group and tells everyone to hide quickly. Before they can move, another explosion suddenly bursts out while sending panic through the troops. Then, out of nowhere, a structure starts forming right in front of them. One of the soldiers points it out, shocked. They've never seen anything like this, not even during drills. Soon after, hordes of zombies begin materializing alongside the building. Another soldier shouts in disbelief as the undead appear in large numbers. Trying to take control, Junmo motions for everyone to keep quiet while signaling them not to make a sound so the zombies wouldn't detect them. But fear overwhelms the Blue Flower Guild member, and he bolts. His sudden movement catches the attention of the zombies, who immediately shift their gaze toward the group. Chaos erupts as the undead charge toward them. Junmo instantly commands the squad to fire. As bullets start flying, one of the soldiers panics while commenting that there are far too many. Junmo yells at them to find cover wherever they can. At the same time, Hyunwook is locked in a fight with a vampire. The vampire is pinned against a tree, an arrow stuck deep in his elbow. He struggles to pull it out but fails. The arrow isn't just physical, it's dampening his powers. The pain clearly weighs on him. Hyunwook, while standing nearby, keeps his cool. He doesn't rush to finish the vampire off. Instead, he starts interrogating him. The vampire scoffs at the idea of being killed by something so minor. Hyunwook admits he can't instantly kill him without divine power, but reminds the vampire that endless blood loss can feel worse than death. This comment rattles the vampire, who demands to know how Hyunwook knows so much. When the vampire tries to remove the arrow again, Hyunwook pushes it in further using his magic. He then asks about the connection between the vampire and the second grandson of the Great Gugwang group, while suggesting he might be the one funding him. The vampire growls at the question and flares up, but the increasing pain keeps him from lashing out. Hyunwook grins slightly while noting that the vampire's anger is proof he hit the mark. Encouraged by this, he keeps pressing. Next, he brings up the mysterious figure that the necromancer. The vampire, however, scoffs and shows pity while calling Hyunwook clueless. He explains that the necromancer could be anyone, possibly someone right beside Hyunwook, or even a loved one. Hyunwook notes to himself that the vampire seems desperate for acknowledgement, yet refuses to give clear answers. He guesses the vampire has never seen the necromancer in person. The vampire calls Hyunwook pathetic while mocking him for assuming too much. He mentions that someone as secretive as the necromancer wouldn't show himself or reveal his thoughts even to someone under his command. Hyunwook, unimpressed, throws back a sharp jab while asking if that makes the vampire just a creepy follower. As the two argue, a massive snake slithers behind Hyunwook while preparing to strike. But Lee remains focused. The vampire rages and commands the snake to attack while shouting that Hyunwook knows nothing. Yet Hyunwook, while anticipating this move, quickly impales the snake with a spear and ending it instantly. He casually thanks the vampire for the item while noting he'll make good use of it. In his thoughts, Hyunwook starts piecing things together. If the necromancer had truly awakened, he would have made a move by now. But if he hasn't, why is this vampire so blindly devoted to him? Things aren't adding up. With frustration, he suddenly snaps at the vampire while demanding to know how he even got inside the raid gate. The Blue Flower Guild was guarding the entrance, so how did he slip in alone? The vampire snarls in response while asking how Hyunwook entered when the gate has a strict level cap, as nobody above level 18 should be able to pass. That comment catches Hyunwook off guard. If this vampire opened the gate himself, then maybe one person can indeed manipulate a gate. The vampire chuckles at Hyunwook's shocked reaction, while saying it proves he knows nothing. He warns that the second phase is about to begin. Hyunwook starts noticing changes in the environment. The terrain is shifting fast. He realizes he might lose the vampire and even the fail-not weapon if he doesn't act fast. He rips the arrow out of the vampire just as a new warning pops up that Zombie King's castle has appeared. Hyunwook stiffens. So this is what the second phase meant. The vampire cackles with glee. He brags that the real phase of the raid is now starting, and soon, Hyunwook will taste the true horrors of this world, all planned by him. Back at Junmo's side, the group stays hidden from the undead, but tension spikes again as the Zombie King suddenly emerges into the area. The vampire, still with Hyunwook, explains that this being, Baron Samedi, commands both life and death, light and shadow. As he appears, he grants vision to all previously summoned zombies. Their power and coordination increase drastically. The vampire taunts Hyunwook while his comrades used as bait will now be sacrificed, and the zombies will flood the outside world once they breach the gate. Hyunwook, for the first time in the entire battle, feels a cold shiver. The vampire ends his words with a wicked laugh while challenging Hyunwook to stop the descent of the true zombie king, Baron Samedi. Hyunwook, taken aback by this development, realizes that because of him, the monsters now have eyes. The moment marks a turning point. The creatures begin to detect the hidden soldiers and launch their attack. Chaos quickly follows. Hyunwook observes the zombies moving directly toward them, now fully aware of their targets. Gunfire erupts as the soldiers return fire in panic. Recognizing the danger, Hyunwook informs the raid squad that the zombies have gained vision and volunteers to cover their escape. As the others begin pulling back, the Zombie King keeps his eyes locked on the soldiers and smashes rocks aimed at harming them. In the midst of the tension, Hyunwook hurls a grenade while triggering a massive blast. Turning to Private Park Junmo, An Min-tae, and Choi Min-jae, he urges them to retreat immediately, while reminding them they won't last long if they stay. He mentions the brutal truth that confidence alone won't help when it comes to taking down a comrade turned into a zombie. Amid the flurry of grenades thrown toward the attacking zombies, sparks flash continuously in the smoky air. Despite this, Park Junmo assures Hyunwook that if he goes down, they'll go with him. Hearing that from his teammates, Hyunwook orders the squad to retreat completely and to use all the remaining grenades. Meanwhile, the Zombie King declares that he will offer the last of their comrades as sacrifices. In the background, his castle, Ndako, nears full construction. As a result, the gate's entry restriction rises from level 18 to level 30. He then reveals his plan that the zombies will attempt to break through the gate and flood into the outside world, and the squad must try to stop them. The atmosphere turns more dire as the soldiers race to dodge the Zombie King's relentless blows. Hyunwook sprints quickly, all the while hearing nearby grenade explosions echo from a close-by building. He considers the claymore mine he placed if it detonates. That would be his final option while signaling to the others that they must hide no matter what. Just as he starts to express his thoughts, Park Junmo interrupts while assuring him that they'll all be waiting, so he must survive and return. Hyunwook responds with certainty that he'll come back while urging them to wait for him. Pushing forward, he races toward the zombies. Holding the Achilles spear tightly, he unlocks it while raising his mana to extreme levels. The zombies flood toward him, but he reminds himself of the promise he made to come back no matter what, and begins smashing through them with sheer strength. At that moment, the Zombie King himself appears in front of him, furious that his descent has been disrupted. His rage is unmistakable. Meanwhile, other AMT members, also retreating, are still under attack. Kim Kyung-jin, oddly enough, carries a large jar while causing Choi Tae-young to question the reason. Kim responds vaguely while stating that he just had a feeling the jar is important to the Zombie King. Despite the situation, they keep running as the zombies chase from behind. Park Junmo then shows up while firing at the creatures and shouting for them to hurry. He reports that the C4 setup is finished and asks An Min-tae to provide cover. Following his lead, Min-tae moves to the front, and together they detonate the explosives. A powerful explosion follows while throwing both zombies and soldiers to the ground. Fortunately, the squad survives. Though shaken, they're unharmed. Looking around, they realize the zombie gate seems blocked, at least for now. But there's a new problem. They're trapped inside the building, and oxygen could run out soon if they stay. Park Junmo notes that they've dealt with the urgent threat and must now locate an exit as quickly as possible. They head off only to be met again by the Zombie King, whose fury hasn't cooled. His gaze lands on the stolen jar and he laughs with dark amusement. Shock spreads through the squad as they confront him. Suddenly, Hyunwook reappears while commanding everyone to halt. Park Junmo feels relief seeing him alive. As Hyunwook faces the Zombie King, he mutters to himself that he's the only one allowed to mess with his teammates. The soldiers freeze in surprise for a second. Suddenly, a system alert pops up while warning that a large chunk of mana has been burned in a short span. Only 32% remains. He realizes he's been acting tough, but now he's low on mana and completely clueless about how to beat this terrifying enemy. Now standing face to face with the Zombie King, he wonders if the monster is a long-range type. Gripping his spear tightly, Hyunwook rushes in. The Zombie King looks furious at the sight of him, but strangely, he doesn't attack. That catches Hyunwook off guard. He starts to think something doesn't feel right. Meanwhile, Park Junmo tells the squad to ready their gear. During the intense fight, Hyunwook keeps thinking that something is off, maybe it's because of that. Just then, the Zombie King charges forward and swings hard. Hyunwook clenches his teeth but gets slammed and falls hard to the ground. Anger fills him as the squad stares in shock. Quickly recovering, he tosses mana potions to the others. Rising to his feet, he walks toward the Zombie King again, while gripping the Achilles spear tighter than before. He reignites its power, although he's running dangerously low on mana. Then, he calls for An Min-tae to defend the front line. With him blocking ahead, Hyunwook gulps down a mana star, which temporarily boosts his energy for 5 minutes. With renewed energy, he challenges the Zombie King. Activating a smash skill with his spear, he drives it straight at the monster. But the Zombie King grabs the weapon mid-air. Hyunwook instantly realizes the problem that it's the barrier. If he keeps wasting attacks blindly, he'll lose all his gear. And with the squad depending on him, he can't afford to back off and look for a weakness. The soldiers stay behind their shields while holding off the monster's pressure. Hyunwook starts thinking again that if the descent isn't fully complete, there has to be some weak spot. But where? Just then, Kim Kyungjin stands with a sword in hand. Park Junmo approaches while asking where the sword came from. He warns him not to mess with dungeon items, since their effects are unknown. Kim calmly responds that they don't have a choice anymore. Even Hyunwook can't leave them behind. Someone has to act. Right as the Zombie King charges at them, Park Junmo quickly tells Kim to stab. Jinwo slammed his sword into the creature's heart, and the monster fell to its knees. Hyunwook looks at his team and asks if they're okay. Park Junmo confirms they're all holding up, but Hyunwook remains confused about what's really happening. Then, they all notice the Zombie King, now sitting and seething in rage. He spots a jar, one that Kim had snatched earlier. At the same time, Hyunwook sees the sword stuck in the monster and wonders whether it struck the heart or lungs. The Zombie King lets out a deafening roar, so loud the squad can't even hear themselves think. A warning appears again. The forced restart of the descent of the Zombie King, Baron Samedi, has begun. A new alert pops up that the spirit of incomplete death is flowing through the Zombie King, and the level cap has jumped to 53. Then, it all clicks for Hyunwook. The jars work just like the canopic jars from Egypt, vessels that store a mummy's organs. If this monster is like that, then the heart must hold his spirit. That's the weak point. With the barrier up and the king distracted, now's his shot. Pulling out Fail Not, Hyunwook locks in on the heart and takes aim. But as the arrow flies, the Zombie King's wounds start healing rapidly because of the descent effect. Still, Hyunwook doesn't back down. He thinks this healing won't last. He charges once more with the Achilles spear and focuses all his strength. This weapon will wipe out that annoying regeneration, he believes. As the spear slams into the monster, the Zombie King howls in agony. That's when he notices a strange metal closing in fast, and he knows, deep down, this time, he's in serious trouble. As he notices An Min-tae, he questions what he's up to and orders him to activate the shield. Following the command, An Min-tae casts the shield to block the Zombie King's fierce blows, using it as cover. Hyunwook joins him behind the barrier, and An Min-tae checks if he's doing okay. Observing his ability in action, Hyunwook is taken aback and wonders about the skill. An Min-tae explains that ever since entering the dungeon, his level has been rising rapidly. The last time he stopped the Zombie King's attack, he leveled up and finally unlocked the shield skill. Just like Hyunwook once mentioned, the world standard no longer applies. While he continues speaking, a system alert pops up while letting him know that a level 1 magic shield has been granted. Hyunwook, however, questions how he could rely on an untested skill that might have gotten him killed. An Min-tae responds that he just wanted to protect him. In return, Hyunwook admits he gets it, but reminds him it's his own duty to shield the rest, so he shouldn't push himself too hard. An Min-tae shows gratitude, but Hyunwook shrugs it off while saying he should save the thanks for when they all make it out alive. As the battle presses on, another alert suddenly appears that the descent process has been interrupted. The Zombie King now looks more intense than ever. A further warning signals that an incomplete spirit of death is spreading through his body, and soon it will pull him back into death. The creature lets out a monstrous growl. Still, despite his condition worsening, he charges forward while suggesting that this might be his final attempt to drag them down with him. Thinking quickly, Hyunwook tells Choi Taeyang to block the Zombie King's view with continuous fire. Choi doesn't hesitate and starts shooting non-stop. Meanwhile, Park Junmo encourages the raid squad to use distraction tactics until Hyunwook regains his mana. Hyunwook tries to stop them from risking too much, but Park insists that they'll buy him some time while leaving the final strike to him. Hyunwook's mana slowly begins to recover as Choi Taeyang keeps firing. However, he soon announces he's out of bullets. At that moment, Hyunwook rushes in and gets the monster's attention while claiming himself as the true opponent. He recalls the only way to defeat the Zombie King is to destroy his organs stored in 3 canopic jars: his liver, heart, and eyes. With a deafening roar from the monster, Hyunwook closes in for the finishing blow. He pulls out the fail knot and strikes the creature's eye. He mocks the creature's disgraceful behavior while urging him to carry himself like a true king. Then, using the Cloud Blade, he delivers the final slash that ends the Zombie King's reign. A system message appears while congratulating him for slaying the enemy. Everyone freezes, stunned that the monster has truly been defeated. Then, cheers erupt that the raid was a success. Hyunwook receives a new item, the Crown of Light and Darkness, which he doesn't recognize from his past life. Even more curious, it seems to possess a unique trait. Suddenly, a danger alert flashes. The destruction of Indako, the Zombie King's stronghold, has begun. One soldier yells to Hyunwook while snapping him out of his thoughts. He realizes they haven't even gathered loot or points yet, but there's no time. He urgently warns everyone to evacuate. The troops rush out while moving quickly through the collapsing fort. Another notification confirms that the raid is complete and the gate will shut soon. They all sprint toward the exit while trying to make it before it closes. Hyunwook shouts out while urging them to move faster as the gate starts shrinking. Outside, Catherine is in the middle of a conversation with her guildmate, who brings up concerns about party-level requirements for the raid, while saying every member must be at least level 53. She also questions whether going solo as Blue Flower Guild might backfire if the Gugwang group withdraws support. They're caught off guard when they spot the gate starting to shut, and then, one by one, the AMT troop bursts through. Hyunwook flies out just in time as the gate seals behind them. Relief floods the group that they made it out alive. Hyunwook gathers the group and praises them for their efforts while confirming the Red Gate raid is complete. Everyone celebrates, overwhelmed by success. Watching from a distance, Catherine becomes furious. She can't believe they cleared the Red Gate. She wonders who Hyunwook really is. Back inside the ruined fort, Kim Taesop roams around. After receiving the gate clearance message, he had rushed there, but now he can't find the gate. Confused, he searches for the exit, convinced it was right there. Suddenly, a vampire steps out from the shadows behind him. At first, Kim assumes he's a human from the rescue team and tries to speak with him while asking for the way out. But the vampire lunges forward with intense bloodlust while revealing his true intentions. He slaughters Kim Taesop without hesitation, his mind consumed by thoughts of Hyunwook. The vampire vows to take everything Hyunwook holds dear and paint it all with blood. At the same time, Hyunwook gives clear orders for the raid squad to line up in double file. Quickly, they arrange themselves in an organized line while looking like a polished crew. He then walks toward Catherine. As he approaches, she immediately wants answers. She asks about their own team. Hyunwook explains that by the time they entered the gate, everything had already gone wrong. Catherine listens, and then points out that he seems to be claiming success all on his own. Hyunwook responds calmly while hinting that the upcoming gate analysis will confirm the truth. Naturally, his calm words upset her. Her voice grows sharper as she demands to know who he really is. She asks whether he's truly an F rank, clearly shaken by his unexpected strength. He meets her glare and calmly questions if she really thinks his success was only luck. In return, she expresses doubt and says she'll believe everything once the results are out. Then she suddenly changes the topic and asks if he happened to see a spear-type item inside, possibly something their zombified Blue Flower Guild member carried, or maybe an item from the dungeon's treasure house. Her question triggers a memory in Hyunwook. He recalls shouting for everyone to evacuate as the castle collapsed. During that moment, he had seen an item marked with the indomitable steel body and had taken it. However, back in the present, he lies and tells her he didn't see any spears. Instantly, she looks stunned. She had been confident that something like that was inside. She insists there must have been one. But as she keeps pressing him, Hyunwook interrupts and accuses her of switching topics too often. He implies she's avoiding their bet, and even teases her title while calling her the Great Department Head of Seoul's Blue Flower Guild. He asks if she's trying to back out of her promise. Frustrated, she shouts again. Her emotions spike, and Hyunwook steps back slightly. He comments that she seems out of sorts and offers to return later to settle things. But before he can leave, she grabs his wrist tightly. She cries out that he should join the Blue Flower Guild right now and promises he'll receive the best treatment in the industry. For a moment he pauses, thinking she only wants to grind him down and control him. Suddenly, a soldier announces the arrival of the 3rd AMT Brigadier General. Everyone salutes Corporal Hyunwook. Choi Jung-chul walks in with a smile when he spots both Hyun-wook and Catherine together. He wastes no time and questions whether Catherine is trying to snatch away a key soldier before his discharge. Catherine quickly responds while claiming she only gave a suggestion, but Choi Jung-chul presses further. He asks if Blue Flower violated rules and arranged a separate raid. His words leave her in disbelief. She denies it, but he continues while bringing up the Gugwang Group 2 issue and claiming Blue Flower has overstepped multiple times. Then, he announces that he'll file a formal complaint with the Blue Flower Guildmaster. He adds that an official document about this should also be sent to other guilds for discussion. Catherine clenches her fist so tightly in anger that blood starts dripping from her hand. Soon after, Choi Jung-chul and Hyun-wook head into a private room. There, the Brigadier General bursts into laughter and praises Hyun-wook for achieving 100% contribution in the raid. He admits he never saw it coming and can't wait to witness the Blue Flower Guild Master's reaction. Hyun-wook observes how much the man enjoys watching Blue Flower fail just this once. Moments later, Jung-chul compliments him again and says it's his first time encountering someone like Hyun-wook. In response, Hyun-wook humbly mentions that he didn't do it alone, and that his squad was with him the whole way. He begins to bring up the promise, but Jung-chul cuts him off with another compliment and announces that every squad member will be promoted by 1 rank. He also grants Hyun-wook the chance for a rank re-evaluation. Hyun-wook feels uneasy about the older man's sly generosity. Still, he expresses thanks for the promotions, the rank re-evaluation, and the promised reward. He uses formal words, but inside, he knows how clever this man really is. Jung-chul watches him closely and asks what he truly wants. Without hesitation, Hyun-wook asks for divine-powered weapons for his entire squad. Jung-chul is clearly shocked by this. He turns toward Hyun-wook and reminds him that the zombie gate has just ended, and yet he's already making such a bold request. Meanwhile, in another area, a young boy bursts into a room and shouts some shocking news that the support squad has cleared the level 53 red gate all on their own. A nearby soldier scoffs while thinking it's nonsense, but the boy insists it's true, even revealing that Corporal Hyun-wook received a scouting offer from Blue Flower. The soldiers in the room are stunned. One of them points out that this might mean Hyun-wook has surpassed Sergeant Choi Young-hoon. Another adds that once Sergeant Choi returns, they'll need to settle it with a match to see who the true ace is. At that same time, the returning support squad is resting together while talking among themselves. One soldier shares how all the attention feels like a burden. Another agrees while saying they were ignored before, and now it's hard to adjust to being noticed. Someone brings up Park Junmo while wondering why he doesn't seem to be affected by all the attention. They glance over and see him happily speaking with a group of girl soldiers while bragging about the raid. He tells them about the moment when Hyun-wook ran out of mana but still stepped forward to stop the zombies. One girl asks how the rest of the squad got so strong, and Junmo proudly says it's thanks to Corporal Hyun-wook's special training. Elsewhere, Hyun-wook is alone in a room while eating quietly. Suddenly, someone bursts in. It's Private Lee Won-suk. He introduces himself and says he has business with the support squad. He quickly falls to his knees and begins crying. He begs Hyun-wook to forgive him and pleads for a second chance. Hyun-wook doesn't turn to look at him. He wonders why Won-suk had to come in now, of all times. But Won-suk remains on the floor while sobbing. A system notification pops up that Hyun-wook is now digesting the Crown of Light and Darkness, which he had consumed earlier. Eventually, Hyun-wook stands and looks at Won-suk. Though he doesn't like him, he realizes the soul wave is coming. Most squads won't survive it. Even one more fighter could make a difference. After thinking it over, he tells Won-suk he'll accept him. Won-suk stares in disbelief, overwhelmed with happiness. But Hyun-wook's expression turns serious. He grabs Won-suk by the collar and warns him to prepare to die. Won-suk looks lost. He doesn't understand what's happening. He stammers and tries to confirm what he just heard. But Hyun-wook shoves him down and growls that it doesn't matter whether he heard it right or not. Won-suk keeps begging while calling Hyun-wook's name, because he wants to survive. Meanwhile, in a dark place, the vampire stands silently. Someone storms in, furious while yelling about all the items lost because of his failure. The man accuses him of not completing a simple gate test. The vampire hangs his head and apologizes. A strange girl appears beside him. She speaks in a creepy voice and says that usually, someone like him would be left to starve and die. But this time, he's lucky. They've been summoned. She licks her lips in a strange, monstrous way and grins with excitement. She whispers that soon, blood will cover the entire Seoul region. Finally, the Soul Wave is about to begin. Kai Baek-jun, the guildmaster of Great Mountain, is on a call with the guild chairman while reassuring him that his judgment is accurate. He brings up the recent failure of the candidate at Seoul Station and mentions that plans are already in motion. Moreover, he's already gathering forces through contacts in the black market. He is determined to track down the key, no matter what it takes. He mentions that the small-time thief seems to use fire in combat, which leads him to believe the person is likely part of AMT. With that in mind, he's planning to trigger 4 gates during the upcoming Soul Wave and then split them up. Afterward, some of his loyal enforcers will be sent to wipe out the 1st AMT Battalion. Trying to ease the chairman's concerns, he reassures him not to worry about the situation in Korea. Once the call ends, he turns to the slaughterers while telling them that they've now got fresh prey. One of the vampires, eager for action, asks for orders. He responds that their task is to raid the 1st Battalion of Namsan AMT as soon as the wave kicks off and to eliminate everything that breathes. When the vampire checks if there's any specific strategy to follow, he simply mentions they're free to handle it however they like. Their mission is clear: to begin with the military unit and erase Seoul from South Korea's map. Over at the 3rd AMT Brigade's 1st Battalion, the battalion commander begins the promotion ceremony with a formal salute to Hyun-wook and 6 other soldiers who've just received orders for a 1-rank promotion. Following that, every soldier in the unit returns the salute in unison while standing tall with pride. The commander then praises them all for their outstanding service and offers his congratulations. Hyun-wook nods while giving a quick word of thanks. Soon after, the commander remarks that he's always held the belief that if every soldier and officer carries out their responsibilities properly, they can build a healthy and unified barracks culture, one that leaves no one behind. Hearing this, Hyun-wook can't help but think the commander is diving into another one of his trademark long speeches. Still, the commander continues while expressing how their strong military discipline has turned his beliefs into reality, and how genuinely proud he feels. But just then the flow is interrupted. The commander gets a call, his tone sharpens, and he brings up someone named Kaido. He mentions that he'll head over immediately, and then directs the 2nd platoon leader to take charge and finish the promotion ceremony in his place. The platoon leader steps in without hesitation and keeps the event moving. At that moment, Hyun-wook starts to wonder that could this Kaido be Okita Kaido, the Sword Saint assassin who once killed Sword Saint Guk Seongpyo? Memories from his previous life begin to surface. Back then, after receiving intel about Kaido's illegal entry through Busan port, Commander Kim Kang-sok had left the battalion to go after him. Sadly, during that absence, 2 vampires wiped out the entire 1st AMT Battalion. It's clear now that the past he remembers has begun to repeat itself. As thoughts swirl in his mind, the 2nd platoon leader continues with the ceremony and reads out the results of the rank advancement. An Min-tae, Choi Min-jae, Choi Tae-yong, Park Seung-min, and Kim Kyung-jin are all promoted to D rank. He instructs them to inspect their awarded weapons and make sure to register them at the local branch office. Everyone quickly complies. While the others celebrate their progress and enjoy the moment, Hyun-wook quietly wonders whether the future he remembers is about to replay itself and whether this time he'll be able to survive what's coming. One of the soldiers then mentions it feels like they could achieve even more while wondering how amazing it would be if someone got promoted by 2 ranks at once. Meanwhile, Hyun-wook notices Corporal Park Junmo and checks if he's all right. Junmo responds that he's fine, though he had expected things to turn out this way. He adds that unlike the others, he isn't able to raise his level easily, even though he also received a reward and a high-grade weapon. Afterward, everyone begins examining their new weapons. When Hyun-wook opens his own box to check his, the soldiers behind him question whether the items inside are actually pegs instead of a proper weapon. That moment makes Hyun-wook realize that all his preparations are already complete. Worrying now serves no purpose. He understands that he has no option but to face whatever lies ahead. Whatever the future throws at him, he's ready to crash into it, crush it, and consume it. Still, he feels deeply let down by what he received as a reward. Then his memory drifts to a few days later at the Namsan guard post. While they're on duty at their stations, Park Junmo casually brings up that it seems like they're getting assigned night duty way too often these days, joking that they've become easy targets again. Hyun-wook quietly thinks to himself that maybe it's a good thing the incident hasn't happened yet. Perhaps the changes he made weren't enough to alter the course of the wave. If that's true, then the screen event, the one that will unleash chaos on Seoul, is set to begin today. As they continue standing watch, Park shares that just thinking about the upcoming reward vacation and seeing his grandmother again is keeping him awake at night. He insists he's being completely honest. In response, Hyun-wook asks if he trusts him. Without hesitation, Park answers that he does, fully and without doubt. Then, Hyun-wook tells Park Junmo that they're leaving their post from this moment. Park is stunned to hear that. Just then, a woman walks over and asks An Min-tae and Park Junmo if they're staying awake. They both answer that they're not sleeping. She casually brings up how they've been getting assigned night duty way too often lately and checks if they're doing all right. Park responds that he's fine. After that, he adds that Hyun-wook mentioned this is also part of their training, so they didn't really have a choice. The woman responds with a light comment, saying that Hyun-wook clearly believes in their abilities, which is why he gives them such tasks. She encourages them to stay strong. Park thanks her for her words and says he'll do his best. She jokes with a smile that they better stay positive, or she'll kill them herself. They laugh it off and nod along. But suddenly, something unusual catches their eyes. Strange creatures start approaching from a distance. Right away, Hyunwook raises his voice while warning it to halt and raise his hand, and adding that he'll fire if he get any closer. He also shouts that if he is a civilian, he must not take another step. However, as he looks more closely, he realizes these are not people, they're monsters. Without delay, he pulls the trigger and drops the creature, which collapses to the ground. The other soldiers freeze in shock, unable to believe what just happened. Hyunwook, though still standing, is also shaken by the sight. But before they can recover, they spot a whole group of monsters charging toward them. Without wasting a moment, Hyunwook orders everyone to open fire. Then he calls Park Junmo to move to the doorway quickly. As soon as Park gets into position, Hyunwook casts a magic shield, and the wave of monsters is blasted away in all directions. At that moment, it hits him that this is it. The terrifying soul wave has begun. CEO Yoonha is seated in the executive's official residence lounge while focusing on her laptop and tracking patterns in military figures under regulation and particular oversight. As she is analyzing the data, an odd sensation washes over her. Prompted by instinct, she steps out of her room, activates her skill Holy Night, and then carefully pushes the door open. At that moment, a chilling scene unfolds before her eyes that numerous snakes slither through the space while grabbing the military executives. The sight leaves her startled. As she tries to grasp the situation, a vampire suddenly appears in front of her. Caught off guard, she is struck by his sudden blow and collapses onto the ground, injured. With a cold tone, he remarks that he has finally located her, the third daughter of the Holy Knight Order's captain. He keeps attacking her without pause, but she gathers her strength and lands a solid kick on his face while sending him staggering back. Without hesitation, she follows up with a series of fierce hits while forcing him to retreat even further. Though wounded, she questions his identity while wondering if he might be a player. While observing him, she realizes that the parts of his body touched by her holy energy were scorched, and yet, his recovery speed is impressive. This makes her wonder who he truly might be. He, however, responds with indifference while claiming there's no purpose in learning his name since her fate is sealed. Despite the threat, a smirk lingers on his face. He remarks, almost playfully, that it's unfortunate to end the life of someone so beautiful. Before she can react further, her eyes widen in disbelief. Just behind her, a gate has appeared, and with it, a wave begins. The vampire then questions if she's truly lost in thought while he's standing right in front of her. Without giving her time to respond, he strikes her with a heavy rope-like weapon, and then seizes her by the neck. He remarks that he's well aware of her pride, but warns that she should be more aware of her surroundings before showing such confidence. Now pinned to the ground, her neck still trapped in his grasp, she starts to think that without any weapons on her, she has no way to fight back. At that moment, he mentions that although he would enjoy dragging the fight out longer, he's pressed for time and intends to end it quickly. Even as her vision begins to blur, she realizes she cannot afford to pass out here. She must resist, no matter what. But her strength is slipping fast, and consciousness begins to fade. Just then, as the vampire moves in for the final blow, Hyunwook suddenly appears. His unexpected arrival makes the vampire pause, clearly irritated by the interruption. With his grip broken, Yuna falls from his hold and starts coughing while struggling to catch her breath. Between gasps, she asks Hyunwook why he's here. Calmly, he explains that he came to save her. His words leave her briefly stunned. Meanwhile, the vampire watches their exchange with growing fury. He snarls in frustration while accusing them of acting as if he isn't even there. He compares them to someone from a past encounter who showed similar disrespect, an insult he hasn't forgotten. His hatred for military officers becomes clear as he expresses his disgust while calling them rats. However, Hyunwook stays composed and firm. He declares that this time, the vampire won't be getting away. That only fuels the vampire's rage further. The monsters keep forcing their way through the gate, their numbers growing steadily. Inside, the soldiers start exchanging thoughts while mentioning that the rapid response unit should arrive shortly. At the same time, those stationed near the entrance begin to worry while fearing the door might collapse any moment under the pressure. Just then, a lady steps forward while offering support. She calmly assures them that she'll handle the mana flow and encourages them to grit their teeth and endure just a bit longer. Her presence brings a brief moment of hope. Soon after, the rapid response unit finally arrives, moving swiftly into their assigned A2 formation. As they take position, the goblins appear stunned by the unit's sudden arrival and precision. Meanwhile, a lady vampire suddenly shows up, her tone casual yet chilling. She wonders aloud why the zombies are still lingering. As she steps into view, all the soldiers freeze in shock while recognizing her terrifying presence. Amid the tension, some soldiers whisper to each other in panic, while realizing that even the rapid response unit didn't manage to scream before being taken down. Fear starts to spread among them, as they begin to think they won't survive this. With a cold smile, the lady vampire mocks their reaction. She notes their silence and calls them dull while claiming that if they're that boring, then they don't deserve to live. Her words send another wave of dread through the troops. But then, unexpectedly, she notices Choi Young-jun approaching, calmly making his way through the swarm of monsters, casually sipping rum. She feels genuinely surprised when she sees Choi Young-jun. But just as he lifts his rum to take a sip, one of the monsters suddenly smashes the bottle from his hand while shattering it into pieces. At that moment, his irritation clearly shows as his drink is completely gone. Annoyed, he turns to the monster while questioning if it's truly responsible for ruining his drink. Without waiting for an answer, he bursts forward with explosive speed while cutting down every monster that stands in his path. The sheer intensity of his movement leaves the vampire stunned, caught off guard by his overwhelming strength. Once the area clears, Choi Young-jun faces her and casually asks if she's the leader, then demands to know how she plans to make up for his lost rum. She watches him with interest while finding his attitude entertaining. With a slight grin, she remarks that he must be very confident in his speed. Then, she adds that with someone like him, maybe she can finally enjoy herself after a long time while suggesting they should have some real fun. However, before she finishes, he suddenly appears right behind her and calmly tells her to simply pay for the rum. Startled, she reacts with a powerful strike, but Young-jun meets it with a sharp defensive move while blocking her attack. Witnessing the clash, the surrounding soldiers begin to cheer quietly, their spirits lifting now that he's finally on the scene. Finally, Choi Young-jun looks at the vampire with a firm expression and remarks that if she doesn't bring back his rum, he'll be cutting off something else, and that will be how he settles the debt. The vampire becomes startled after recognizing him. She nervously asks if he is truly Choi Young-jun, since she had heard he had been deployed elsewhere. In response, Choi Young-jun explains that he was ordered to do something, he completed it, and now he is back. Then, without any concern, he repeats his question about the rum. This casual attitude frustrates the vampire girl, and in anger, she calls him insane. Immediately after, she attacks Choi and shatters the weapon in his hand. Then, she turns her rage on the other soldiers and strikes them too. As a result, several of them fall to the ground, and even Choi loses balance for a moment. Nevertheless, he quickly regains his strength. As she dashes toward him again, she wonders when he had moved into that position. At that moment, Choi Young-jun grumbles about losing his buzz because of her. He blows on his knife to power it up and requests a bayonet. Just then, a soldier warns that a normal bayonet may not be effective against her. Another soldier adds that she appears to be a vampire. Choi becomes confused and points out that zombies don't talk, so she can't be one of them. While they are talking, the vampire girl sneaks behind them silently while gripping her sword tightly. She looks furious and thinks to herself that Choi Young-jun's strength proves why people call him a strong candidate for the next Sword Saint. Therefore, she decides to fight him using her top speed. She challenges him to try stopping her if he can even see her movement. Suddenly, a girl soldier notices the vampire and shouts a warning. Choi immediately turns around and realizes that the vampire is right behind him. Luckily, he blocks her attack just in time and counterattacks. At the same time, the soldiers begin to panic while thinking they might be the next target. However, Choi protects them all and slams the vampire against a wall. He then explains that he was trying to control his body's pace to stay drunk longer, but now the buzz is completely gone. While looking at her, he questions how she plans to take responsibility for ruining it. On the ground, the vampire grows nervous. She realizes that Choi is much stronger than she expected. Eventually, she admits to herself that she can't take him alone and needs to flee, so she turns to run. Meanwhile, Choi begins to speak while saying he has a question now that he's sober. Before he can finish, she runs off while thinking she must meet the other slaughterers and find a way to defeat him. Unexpectedly, Choi Young-jun appears behind her and questions what she's doing. While she keeps running, he quickly strikes again. Their battle restarts, and he attacks with full force while causing her to crash hard onto the ground. As she lies there in pain, Choi wonders aloud how someone who isn't a zombie could be controlling them. Then, while watching her struggle, he observes that she probably won't answer him. He questions whether she's even a human. Soon after, when he sees she has lost consciousness, he tells her to take a nap and promises to ask his questions once he finishes cleaning up. After that, he stands and orders the soldiers to tie her up. He informs the vice platoon leader that he will report back after he is done clearing the area. She agrees while telling him to eliminate the enemies first and report later. At that point, one soldier runs forward and offers Choi a holy power weapon while explaining that it will be more effective. However, Choi refuses the offer. The soldier insists while warning that enemies like her won't die from ordinary weapons. Even so, Choi smirks and explains that it's not fun if the enemies die too easily. He tells them to aim lightly and make the fight more challenging. Then, he walks off to face the remaining monsters. Meanwhile, the soldiers quietly watch him leave. One of them comments that Sergeant Hyun-wook's personality seems a lot like Choi Young-jun's. The other one replies that it's terrifying every time either of them smiles that way. Soon, Choi arrives at another battlefield where a vampire is waiting and greets him in a mocking tone. He claims that this time the vampire won't be able to escape. The vampire becomes furious upon hearing Choi's voice and starts cursing him. Without delay, they begin to fight, both using weapons with great power. During the battle, Choi destroys the ropes formed by the vampire's powers. Hyun-wook warns the platoon leader that monsters are coming out of the gate and heading for the barracks. He urges them to secure weapons and protect the soldiers. The platoon leader responds by identifying the enemy as a vampire and wonders aloud how to fight back without holy power. Hyun-wook explains that trying to fight and protect someone at the same time would only put them at a disadvantage. They definitely need a holy weapon. After thinking it through, the platoon leader recalls how well Hyun-wook has performed up to now. Then she firmly orders her troops not to die while giving a strict command. Back on the battlefield, the vampire shouts at Hyun-wook while saying they should have fought together instead of sending someone else. Hyun-wook, however, keeps smiling without a trace of fear. He joyfully says it's great that the vampire is still alive. This confuses the vampire, so he explains that if he's still breathing, then it means his boss doesn't know about him. He guesses that the vampire must have survived by reporting his failure as just a small mistake. These words infuriate the vampire even more. Hyun-wook then adds that he has been annoyed for a long time about letting the vampire escape and promises to finally end it properly this time. Upon seeing his calm confidence, the vampire warns him not to take him lightly. Right after, he transforms into a monstrous figure and declares that with his new equipment, he is on a completely different level than before. He mocks the holy power beads while calling them useless. He proudly shouts about his expensive mana tanks and swears that Hyun-wook won't even be able to touch him now. He threatens to tear him apart all by himself. In response, Hyun-wook activates his special item, the Crown of Light and Darkness, and releases his Aura Saint. His weapon instantly transforms into a giant holy power weapon. Watching this, the vampire becomes shocked and starts thinking that Hyun-wook just turned a useless item into a divine weapon out of nowhere. Finally, Hyun-wook looks straight at the vampire and declares that today, he will tear him apart with holy power. With a smile on his face, he prepares to end the fight. As he listens to the vampire talk so much, he guesses that the enemy must be scared. Because of that remark, the vampire becomes furious and threatens to rip apart Hyun-wook's mouth. Right after that, their battle begins again. They both pull out their weapons and start attacking each other with full force. Then, the vampire swings his long rope while aiming it at Hyun-wook. At that moment, Hyun-wook realizes that if the attack hits him directly, he will probably die. Now he finally understands why the vampire looked so confident earlier. However, in close range, Hyun-wook figures out that the whip's advantage turns into a weakness. Even though the vampire stands there with a confident grin, Hyun-wook doesn't back down. Instead, he uses his weapon to slice through all the ropes flying at him. While doing so, he thinks about the skill called Indomitable Steel Body and tries to land an attack. Unfortunately, he still gets hit and falls to the ground. However, he refuses to stay down. So he used skill combo and pushes himself back onto his feet. After that, he starts running. When the vampire sees him retreating, he mocks him with confidence while saying that after all the bragging, now he is running away. He dares him to open his mouth again. At the same time, Hyun-wook keeps thinking seriously. He realizes those armored tentacles weren't expected. They blocked his close-range attack by sneaking through the whip's weakness. Because of this, Hyun-wook starts thinking fast. If things continue like this, his final long-range move, Fail Not, may be stopped. So even though it will use a huge amount of mana and leave him exhausted, he decides that he must switch to the Achilles Spear. While he's preparing, the vampire rushes at him and yells that he should keep running until he is dead. Meanwhile, Hyun-wook keeps dodging for his life. Then, the vampire throws his rope again and shouts to unlock while trying to trap him. Although Hyun-wook is doing everything he can to survive, it becomes clear that he might not be able to escape this time. Now, he starts realizing the vampire is using a powerful mana tank built into his armor. It seems this enemy came completely prepared and already figured out his weak points. Also, with other vampires nearby, Hyun-wook knows he cannot waste all his mana fighting just one of them. At that moment, the vampire notices Hyun-wook's hesitation. So, he grins and taunts him again. He asks if Hyun-wook now realizes how helpless he is. He dares him to open his mouth like before. Still, Hyun-wook keeps thinking calmly. If that's the case, then he knows he needs help. So, he quickly calls into his microphone and shouts for Choi Taeyong. The vampire looks confused, not understanding what's going on. Suddenly, a bullet hits him from behind. The impact is strong, and he falls to the ground, completely shocked. It turns out Choi Min-jae has fired the shot. He shouts that Private Choi Taeyong attack has landed. Then, he warns that because of the gunfire, their location may now be exposed, so they must move to another spot quickly. Now the vampire is badly injured and bleeding. Still, he screams in anger while swearing he'll kill them all. When Hyun-wook sees this, he doesn't hesitate. He runs toward him while shouting that he should just die already. Then while using all his strength and skills, he drives his weapon straight into the vampire's body. While the vampire lies dying, he starts thinking in disbelief. He wonders how this could be happening since he believed he was the chosen one. He tries to guess who Hyun-wook really is. He even questions if he's a ranker. Then Hyun-wook walks up and replies calmly. He says that for someone like him, who always acts superior, he'll tell the truth that he's just an F ranker. Hearing that, the vampire can't believe it. While blood pours out of him, He shouts over and over that it's impossible to lose to a lowly F-ranker. Eventually, he repeats it one last time before his body disappears, completely defeated. Afterward, Hyunwook watches everything in silence. Then, he picks up what's left of the vampire. Considering how long absorption takes, he decides to eat only half now and save the other half for later. Right then, another soldier runs in and alerts Sergeant Hyunwook that a skeleton army is now attacking Barracks No. 2. Hyunwook asks about the